Hello there, and welcome. Set down the weight of your day like a smooth stone upon the shore. Let your breath widen as if it were a tide, drawing in slow, silver air and letting it slip away again. Tonight we will wander into the great blue library, where every wave is a turning page and every ripple a margin note in light. The ocean waits in its patient magnitude, carrying histories older than mountains and futures not yet born. You do not need to know all its languages to feel its calm. You only need to listen as the water speaks in long, unbroken sentences that begin beyond the horizon and end softly against your ribs. We will move without hurry, as if rocked by a gentle swell. We will let the science of the sea glow like plankton under the footfall of thought, bright enough to guide us, soft enough to let our eyelids drift down. Perhaps you can hear, even now, the first suggestion of surf, the hush and return that makes a room feel larger than its walls. That sound is a kind of counting, a clock measured in breath and foam. The ocean covers most of our planet, and yet when you meet it, it feels personal, like a sky that has chosen to lie down beside you. It gathers rain from distant storms and returns it as mist on your lips. It gathers sunlight and scatters it into blues upon blues, a gradient that invites the eye to travel and then to rest. The surface is busy wind-drawing patterns, birds etching temporary signatures, ships crossing with their cargoes of stories, but beneath, there is a cathedral hush that remembers ice ages and summers and the footfall of comets in our shared past. Think of that depth as a long corridor of cool air. As you step along, the world behind you grows quiet, and the world ahead becomes simple. Only the next breath, only the next soft wave. In the ocean's language, salt is a memory. Each grain that touches your tongue carries the ghost of rock ground fine by rivers, the taste of old volcanoes and newborn mountains, the trace of creatures who swam and sang and slept long before we had names for them. The water does not forget the paths it takes. It loops and reloops around the planet, as if knitting a sweater for the globe, binding pole to equator with threads of temperature and salinity. In this knitted garment, the earth keeps warm, weather gentled, seasons moderated. You might imagine those threads passing through your hands as you breathe. Cool yarn sliding across your fingers, quiet demonstrations of how movement can comfort without hurrying. Every tide is a nod to the moon, every surge a bow to the sun, and together they persuade the margins of the continents to rise and fall in a lesson about patience. When you feel your own chest lift and settle, you are practicing the same choreography. Science lives here like a lantern hung under the eaves. It does not shout. It gives shape to the dark so your steps can be easy. It reminds us that light reaches only so far before it dissolves into a soft blue, dusk, and then into night. It explains why a wave can travel the width of an ocean while the water itself mostly stays near home, the energy striding ahead like a messenger carrying news from a storm you will never see. It shows how tiny drifting plants drink sunlight and breathe out air, how they tint the sea green or chalky or ultramarine depending on their glassy shells or their chalky plates. At night, other drifters rise toward the fading glow, as if called by a bell, and then return before dawn to deeper safety. It is the largest migration on Earth, and yet it happens quietly, like thoughts moving through the mind as you fall asleep, rising to the surface, then sinking, then rising again, until only the gentle rhythm remains. To sleep alongside the ocean is to recognize that rest is a current, not an on-off switch. You enter it through eddies of sensation, the soft weight of blankets, the hum within your ears, the way your eyes loosen their hold on the world. You can imagine your thoughts as small boats setting off at dusk, each carried by its own wavelet, each heading toward a cove where it will pull ashore and tip its cargo onto the sand. Some boats carry bright facts, how pressure grows with depth, how coral builds stone from light, how whales sing across valleys of water, and some boats carry feelings, old and new, like shells that still smell of the tide. One by one they land, one by one they empty. The beach grows quiet. The tide continues its soft arithmetic, adding and subtracting foam along the edge of the mind. The ocean's scale can feel enormous, but scale is gentle here. A drop remembers the sea as the sea remembers a drop. Close your eyes and find that drop within your breath. Inhale and picture the sunlight touching a calm morning surface, a million mirrors set into motion by a fingertip breeze. Exhale and let yourself slide a little deeper into waters that hold steady at cool temperatures, where the chatter of the surface is a muffled rumor. Here, the blue is thicker, richer. The body floats without effort in this imagined brine. Your shoulders ease, your jaw unhooks. Fishes pass, not as interruptions, but as commas, graceful marks in a sentence that extends beyond the frame. Even the big travelers, the tunas with their silver muscles, the sharks with their ancient purpose move with the economy of sleep. All excess discarded, only what works remaining. Nature here has edited itself toward calm. Think of the seafloor as a record player, turning slowly under the needle of time. New crust forms and drifts. Ridges rise like the seams in a well-loved garment. Trenches tuck old fabric back into the mantle's warm drawer. At vents where stone breathes, water rushes through cracks, gathers heat, and emerges carrying minerals like pocketfuls of coins. Life arrives with no sunlight to fuel it and makes a different bargain, weaving sugar from rock and gas, growing gardens in the dark. All of this happens whether we are watching or not, which is a mercy. The world does not need us to stay awake for it to keep. And yet, when we do look closely, the seeing itself becomes a kind of rest, a surrender to patterns larger than any one day, cycles of bloom and dieback, migrations and returns, storms, and the calm that follows. Knowing that these patterns hold can make your own small cycles feel trustworthy, the way morning follows night, the way ease follows effort. As we drift together into these 100 small truths, we will visit a coastline of ideas, linger in tidal pools of detail, and wade into bays where science and wonder share the same salt. Each truth is simple, but together they form a quiet chorus. We will learn why the sea is blue without needing to grasp a single equation. We will hear how currents braid heat around the planet without memorizing a map. We will meet corals building limestone cathedrals, grain by tiny grain, and kelp rising toward light like banners in a slow parade. We will share the breath of whales and notice how it hangs in the air like a pale flag, then disappears into nothing, leaving only the memory of sighs handled gently. These are not facts to test you, but to lighten you. The way a lullaby does not require you to follow every note to feel calmer at the end. If a worry comes up as we go, notice how the sea handles edges. Waves approach a rock and reshape themselves to pass. They do not argue, they curve. Let your thoughts curve similarly. If a memory insists on being seen, give it the space of a quiet cove. Let the tide wash around it, turning it in the light. Then let it slide gently back into the water, to be softened by distance. In this way, even restless thoughts can become sea glass, their corners smoothed by time and motion. What remains are colors and suggestion, familiar but no longer sharp. This is not forgetting, it is a different kind of remembering, one that allows sleep to approach without fear of being cut. You might notice, too, how the ocean holds contradictions comfortably. It is both nursery and graveyard, both mirror and abyss, both noisy with life and silent as stone. Sleep is like this as well. It is both departure and return, both nowhere and home. You step over a threshold made of breath. You sail a short distance and come back changed. In the hours between, your mind sifts and repairs, your cells tidy their places, your heart practices the same reliable beat it learned in the dark before you were born. If you listen, you can hear that beat now, a private drum aligned with long swells rolling in from beyond sight. That alignment is not coincidence, it is kinship. Water carries life, and life carries water, and the kinship is complete. So let us begin at the surface, where sunlight draws quicksilver calligraphy, and then move downward, layer by layer, calmly, as if we are climbing down a ladder into a blue pool at dusk. We will take only what we need and leave behind a stillness that others can borrow later. There is room for all of us here, the curious, the weary, the hopeful, the uncertain. The ocean accepts each visitor with the same cool hand to the brow. With every fact, imagine a small boat, pushed gently from shore, another thought on its ready journey toward rest. With every image, imagine the horizon leaning closer, the way distant things seem near when the air is clear and the light is kind. You are safe on this water. You are carried without effort. The blue will hold you until morning. The first breath of blue. Let us rest at the edge of the world and take the ocean's first breath together. A slow inhalation of blue that begins on the horizon and unfurls toward our feet. Here, where foam licks the shore like white handwriting and retreats before it finishes the sentence, we can feel the planet's largest presence, behaving as gently as a sleeping animal. The sea is not only a view, it is a body that surrounds our bodies, a patient tide that has learned the shape of every continent and smoothed it with time. Hold that thought like a shell. The ocean is home to most of Earth's living space, a room so large we can only describe it by comparison. A sky turned liquid, a valley without a single wall. About 7/10 of our planet's surface wears this moving mirror. It is not uniform, not a flat sheet laid over stone, but a breathing skin responding to winds, to the moon's careful tug, to heat that ripples down from the sun and up from the planet's interior. The scale is astonishing, and yet not frightening, because scale can be kind when it is consistent. The sea is consistent in its vastness. It is big in every direction, and this steadiness calms the mind like a mantra spoken in waves. Beneath the reflection, depth gathers quietly, step by step, shelf into slope into abyssal plain, the way twilight thickens into night. The average ocean is deeper than mountains are tall, a middle distance of water that would swallow a city without remark. Imagine drifting down through that depth at the speed of a falling thought, past the busy gloss of the surface, past the scattering fish that flash like coins in a shaken jar, into cooler layers where light loosens and the color turns from sapphire to ink. The deepest known trenches wrinkle the crust like the crease in a folded map, dropping nearly 11 kilometers toward the planet's warm heart. A pressure so complete it would fold steel like paper, yet cradle the soft-bodied as if they were made of fog. But most of the ocean is not trench. It is the wide, slow plain of the deep, a dark meadow of silt and drifting snow. Over it passes a constant fall of tiny gifts, flakes of carbon, fragments of shell, shreds of life, settling with the patience of winter. You do not need to see this to understand it. The knowledge arrives like a cool draft through an open window. It touches the skin and then becomes part of the room. If you taste a fingertip of the water and let it rest against your tongue, you meet the ocean's memory in salt. Every grain is a story told by rock to rain, and by rain to rivers, and by rivers to the sea. Mountains contribute their minerals grain by patient grain, the way a long conversation leaves phrases behind. Hydrothermal vents at the sea floor add their mineral syllables as well, mixing metal-rich waters with the cold, and in that mingling, a recipe is refreshed that has been balanced for eons. The sea's salinity hovers near a steady average, roughly 3.5%, yet shifts in local accents. Fresher at river mouths, saltier where evaporation concentrates what remains, like tea brewed longer in certain cups. Salt changes water's character in ways your body understands instinctively. It makes the ocean denser and kinder to a floating form. It lowers the freezing point, so that ice chooses to form as a lid on polar seas, rather than as crystals in the moving depths. It supports currents by joining temperature in the quiet arithmetic of density. Cold tends to sink, warm tends to rise, fresh and salty find their layers. And from these preferences, a choreography is born. To sleep, we too adjust our densities. Heavy limbs, light mind, floating between wakefulness and the deeper layer, settling where we fit. The water itself is old, older than coral, older than the first shells that learned to harden themselves against the world. Much of it condensed from early planetary steam, carried in comets, coaxed from stone by heat and pressure, then gathered into basins that cooled enough to hold it. Oceans formed billions of years ago, not in a single pore but in a long filling, a patient rain conducted by a sky still learning its weather. Since then, every drop has participated in a continuous cycle of exchange, rising as vapor, crossing distances as cloud, returning as rain, running as river, and finally rejoining the vastness, refreshed but not new. In this cycle, each molecule can spend an average of a few thousand years in the sea before being lifted again into the sky's light work. Imagine that residence time as a very long nap shared by uncountable particles, cradled in the basin of the world. While they dream, they share heat across latitudes, absorbing it in equatorial light, releasing it to polar air, smoothing extremes, giving our seasons gentle edges. To think of time in this way, water length, ocean length, is to feel your own hours lengthen, to realize there is room inside a minute for entire weathers of thought. Look again at the color, at the blue that seems simple, until you study it and discover layers of meaning, like a chord composed of many notes. The sea is blue because water is itself slightly blue, because it absorbs reds more eagerly than blues, because the rays that survive depth are those with shorter wavelengths, threading deeper before they, too, become dinner for darkness. At the surface, the color is a collaboration, sky reflected, particles scattering, tiny floating forests shading the water with their greenness. On some days, the ocean wears pewter under a woolen sky. On others, it blazes turquoise where sand and sunlight conspire to brighten the mix. At sunset, a gold brush passes over everything, including the water, which becomes a mirror for any color the sky is willing to lend. We experience these shifts not only with our eyes, but with our breathing. Bright seas widen the inhale. Deep dusk blues lengthen the exhale. The body takes its cues from the world's palette, and in the presence of water, that palette is generous and slow. Even the surface, where we might think all is agitation, is organized by simple kindness. Wind writes ripples, and ripples gather into waves that travel like couriers, carrying energy forward while leaving the water mostly at home. A floating leaf rises and falls, circles a small path, and ends the passage near where it began. Energy goes, matter stays. There is comfort in that separation, a lesson about how to carry news without being moved beyond recognition. Swells born from distant storms arrive as orderly lines across an otherwise quiet sea, the afterthought of a weather you did not have to endure. They cross thousands of kilometers because the ocean, at scale, is a patient medium, a hallway without corners in which a soft footstep can travel and travel. Listen to them in the dark. White noise but not empty, structure but not rigid, the sound of an enormous thing doing nothing more complicated than breathing. If numbers soothe you, hold a few like smooth pebbles in your palm. The ocean's volume is on the order of 1 billion and a third cubic kilometers. a number too large to picture, which is exactly why it comforts. It moves worry out of your personal frame and into a horizon-wide context. Its average depth is a few thousand meters. Its deepest places, nearly 11,000. It contains the greatest museum of life, ever curated, bodies soft and armored, brief and long-lived, hurried and unhurried. And it hosts processes that teach us how to be patient with change. But if numbers feel sharp, let them roll away down the beach, and keep only shapes. Keep the curve of a swell bowing toward shore. Keep the spiral of a shell that turns and turns without needing to arrive. Keep the globe itself, wrapped and warmed by a blue ribbon of moving water that ties our climates into a single weathered gift. We stand at the waterline to begin because the waterline understands beginnings. It is always arriving and always leaving. And in that exchange, we learn how to start softly. You do not have to know what comes next. You only have to feel the cool at your ankles, then your calves, then your knees as you walk forward a few steps. You only have to notice how the weight of the day unshoulders itself when you agree to be carried. The first breath of blue is not a gulp. It is a sip, taken with the lips barely parted, brine and air, mixing into something medicinal for the nervous system. Take that sip now. Hold it for a count. Let it go. The ocean matches your rhythm and then invites it to slow. Far out, currents ink their roots on maps you will never see. Here, a foam fringe sketches and erases the same line over and over until simple repetition becomes sanctuary. We will travel farther soon, but for now, it is enough to stand at this edge and know that the largest thing on earth is capable of such softness, and that you, too, can be large and soft at once, anchored and adrift, awake and already a little asleep. 2. Light on water. When light meets water, something tender happens. The two recognize one another, not as strangers, but as old companions, reuniting after a long separation. The sun, high and patient, lays its warmth across the surface, and the sea, vast and receptive, gathers it in a slow shimmer that travels endlessly outward. For a moment, the boundary between them disappears. What you see is not just reflection, but conversation, a murmured exchange between fire and depth, between brightness and the infinite places it cannot reach. At dawn, the ocean wakes first in whispers. The first light does not rush. It stretches, elongates, softens the horizon. Each photon that touches the surface scatters, bouncing in angles so fine that the eye perceives it as liquid brilliance. The blue that we see is not a color painted on the surface, but the memory of light lost as it sinks. Longer wavelengths, reds, oranges, yellows are absorbed in the upper meters, leaving behind only the blues and violets to wander further down. In this way, the ocean becomes a sculptor of color, shaping each shade according to depth. The shallows gleam turquoise, where sand reflects brightness upward. A little deeper, the hue darkens, cooling to indigo, then navy, until all light is eventually swallowed by the waiting dark. There is a moment in the afternoon when the sun lies directly above, and the water seems almost translucent. You could imagine that if you looked long enough, you might see all the way to the bottom of the world. But even then, the light is working against the weight of matter, scattering off particles of salt, silt, plankton, and countless tiny lives invisible to the naked eye. They refract the sun into a million glints, silver here, jade there, an entire gallery of color and motion held in suspension. This is the living texture of the sea. Constant flux, constant dance, every flash of light, an instant of transformation. By evening, the light bends lower, and its angle softens. Shadows elongate on the waves, and each crest turns to gold for a breath before folding back into shadow. The sea becomes a mirror, a stillness that remembers fire. The reflected sky paints itself in strokes of rose, bronze, lavender, and finally violet, until the palette fades toward the grayscale calm of night. Those who have watched such a sunset know the sensation, that quiet ache, that sense that the world is exhaling. It is a physical lullaby, written in color, reminding the body that all brightness must one day rest. To see light move through water is to watch time itself slow. On the surface, light races 8 minutes from sun to sea. Beneath the waves, it hesitates, diffuses, loses direction. A single beam enters the ocean with certainty, but quickly becomes lost among reflections, refracted by surface ripples, bent by density gradients, scattered by suspended life. What was once a clear trajectory becomes a softened wandering, a spreading glow rather than a line. And in that diffusion lies beauty. The loss of direction becomes a form of surrender, and surrender is what rest requires. Imagine yourself drifting a few meters below the surface, eyes half open, watching sunlight ripple through the water. The beams form shifting columns that dance with the motion of waves above, golden and liquid at once. Each movement changes the pattern, as if invisible hands are painting and erasing at the same time. These shafts of light, divers call them God rays, are both delicate and immense. They fade with depth but never truly end. Instead, they dissolve, transforming into a calm blue twilight that hugs everything within it. If you could float there without needing to breathe, you would witness one of nature's quietest miracles. Energy transformed into serenity. The upper layer of the ocean, called the euphotic zone, is where light still lives. It stretches down roughly 200 meters, depending on clarity and season. Here, the sun's energy feeds the smallest architects of life, the phytoplankton, which use it to craft sugars and oxygen from dissolved carbon dioxide. These minuscule drifters, no bigger than dust motes, fill the sea with unseen forests, invisible leaves swaying with each current. Their photosynthesis fuels everything that swims, crawls, or drifts below. Without them, the sea would be silent and still. The second breath you take comes from these floating gardens, each one lit by the same ancient sunlight that glimmers now on the evening tide. Below this bright realm lies the dysphotic zone, the twilight region where light lingers but cannot sustain growth. It is a dim, dreamlike space, painted in perpetual blue dusk. The colors of the surface vanish here. Reds fade first, followed by yellows and greens, until only a faint sapphire glows around you. Creatures that live in this depth have adapted to the faintness, eyes widened to catch every photon, bodies translucent or silvered to reflect what little brightness remains. They live in a place that is neither day nor night, a liminal corridor where time seems to pause. This is where the ocean begins to hum softly, where light, once so assertive, learns the art of stillness. Farther still, beyond 1,000 meters, begins true darkness, the aphotic zone. No sunlight reaches here. The temperature drops to near freezing, and the pressure grows to crushing intensity. Yet even in this absence, life persists. Some beings have become their own stars, producing bioluminescent light from chemical reactions within their bodies. Their glows are not constant, but conversational signals for finding mates, lures for prey, flashes of warning or invitation. A single jelly drifting in that blackness may pulse with pale blue light, illuminating its delicate edges for only a moment, before fading again, as if the ocean itself had blinked. Light, in its final act, becomes internal. When you float above the water and watch it catch the sky, you are really witnessing the surface of connection, the meeting of all things that move and change. Each shimmer is a story, written by angle and time, by clouds and wind, by the subtle tilt of the earth. Even at night, the sea does not let go of light completely. The moon steps in, silvering the crests, drawing pathways across the surface that seems solid enough to walk upon. Stars echo as trembling reflections, their faint flickers multiplied by the waves. In such moments, darkness is not a loss, but a gentling, an invitation to rest within the rhythm of reflection. Light and water have always defined how we see the world. Our ancestors once believed the sea's glow was the work of spirits, the shimmer of unseen hands guiding ships to safety. Today we know it as physics, scattering, reflection, absorption, yet the awe remains the same. Even armed with formulas, one can still be undone by the sight of morning spilling gold onto a calm lagoon, or by the last pink blush on a receding tide. Knowledge does not dim wonder, it deepens it, giving us more threads to follow into mystery. In every wave that breaks, light fragments and recomposes itself. Each droplet thrown into the air becomes a prism, splitting white sunlight into colors that are visible only for a heartbeat before they fall back into the sea. This endless recombination is the sea's quiet, metaphor for renewal. What seems destroyed, a wave collapsed. A beam scattered, is simply remade in another form, elsewhere, in another time. To live in the light of the ocean is to trust in transformation, to know that even dispersion is not loss. And so we linger a little longer at the boundary, where brightness begins to fade and the world turns blue again. Let your breath mirror the water's pulse. Inhale as the tide approaches. Exhale as it slips away. The same light that traveled across space to find the ocean also finds you. It warms your skin, reflects in your eyes, and settles into memory as color and calm. It reminds you that illumination is not constant. It flickers, drifts, returns. But always, somewhere beneath the shifting surface, the light endures, resting in the salt, in the plankton's bloom, in the quiet gleam of a scale, in the soft echo of thought before sleep. The ocean carries light the way the body carries breath, not as possession, but as grace. 3. The language of waves. There is a rhythm that the world has always known, a soft translation between air and water, between motion and rest. It is the language of waves, a conversation that began long before human sound, and will continue long after our voices have drifted away. When the wind leans upon the sea, it writes messages in the form of ripples, each one a syllable, each crest a whisper. The water listens, bends, and replies. This exchange has no beginning or end. It is a loop, continuous as breath, infinite as sleep. The smallest ripple begins as a question, the brief hesitation of surface tension when touched by a wandering breeze. The skin of the ocean, stretched taut by cohesion, quivers in response. What follows is a repetition of that gesture across distance, one movement triggering another, energy passing hand to hand across an invisible audience. It is easy to imagine waves as things that travel, but what truly moves is not the water itself, it is the pulse through it. The molecules rise and fall in near place, tracing circles so small they seem still, yet together they carry the memory of motion onward. Like a whisper passed along a long corridor, the message changes hands, yet the meaning remains. Wind is the author of most surface waves. When air slides faster over slower moving water, friction ruffles the surface, gathering energy that begins as a tremor and builds into a rhythm. The stronger and longer the wind blows, the larger the waves become. But always with grace, the sea does not leap immediately to fury. It gathers itself first. There are 3 mothers of every wave: wind speed, wind duration, and fetch the distance over which the wind has traveled uninterrupted. These 3 weave the character of each swell, deciding its height, its length, its personality. Even in this, there is music. Short winds create choppy staccato seas, while long, persistent winds craft rolling symphonies that travel the globe. Stand by the shore and watch. Each wave arrives, rises, and bows, as if greeting the sand. The crest curls, folds, and then collapses in a hush of bubbles, the white lace of foam unspooling across the beach. What we see is the wave's final breath, the point where energy, having traveled perhaps for thousands of kilometers, finally meets the shallows that slow its base while the top continues forward. The difference in speed makes it tip forward, and in that tipping lies beauty and loss, the moment of giving back what has been borrowed from the wind. The sound of that collapse, a sighing rush, is the closing punctuation of the sea's sentence. Beneath the surface, the motion is more secret. A particle of water beneath a wave does not surge forward. It moves in a circle. As the crest approaches, it lifts. As the crest passes, it falls. The net movement is small, yet the pattern repeats endlessly. A quiet revolution of molecules performing their appointed orbits. Near the surface, the circles are wide. Deeper down, they shrink, until at last the motion fades entirely. By a depth of half the wavelength, the ocean has forgotten the wave passing above. That too is a kind of peace, knowing when to let the world's disturbances pass without reaching your depths. Out in the open sea, where the bottom lies far below, waves become wanderers. Once born from their windy nursery, they outpace the storm that made them and travel onward as organized swells. They can cross oceans, touching shores that have never known the winds that first stirred them. A storm in the Southern Ocean may send its offspring northward to greet the coasts of distant continents weeks later. To stand on a northern shore and watch their slow arrival is to witness a message carried faithfully across half the world, the memory of distant weather translated into rhythm and sound. The ocean, in this way, is the world's memory in motion. Some waves do not come from wind at all. There are those born from earthquakes, landslides, or sudden changes in the seafloor tsunamis, waves of displacement that speak not of air, but of the earth itself, shifting its weight. They move silently across the deep ocean at the speed of a jet plane, unnoticed until they rise in the shallows, translating depth into height, invisible power into visible consequence. Yet even these immense forces are still bound by the same physics as the gentlest ripple. Energy travels, water stays. The sea's grammar never changes, only the tone does. On quieter days, the language softens to murmurs. Capillary waves, only centimeters wide, shimmer under the sun. They carry no weight, no threat, only pattern. A light wind may stir them into a crosshatch of lines, diamond-shaped reflections that catch the morning light like a net of glass. Such ripples are transient. They come and go with each breath of air, yet they are the beginning of all larger seas. Every mighty swell once began as a tremble so small that only sunlight could see it. The smallest beginnings often lead to the most far-reaching journeys in the ocean as in life. The rhythm of waves is deeply connected to our own inner clocks. Our hearts beat, our lungs expand and contract, our brain waves rise and fall, all in cycles that mirror the tides and swells. This resonance is why we find the sound of the sea so soothing. It speaks in our own physiological language. Studies have shown that the sound of surf slows the heartbeat, deepens breathing, lowers stress. But beyond the biology, there is something older at work, the body's recognition of pattern, the comfort in repetition. When the mind hears the consistent crash and withdrawal of waves, it senses stability, even when the world beyond feels uncertain. It is the closest we come to hearing the earth breathing. Imagine yourself floating beyond the breakers, where the waves are no longer collapsing but rolling gently beneath you. The body rises with each swell, then sinks, with each trough, as if cradled in a giant hand. The sky above is a dome of endless air. Below, a world without edges. The sea lifts you, and sets you down again. Never too far, never too abruptly. You are moving, but not moving anywhere. The body learns the lesson of the particle. Travel in circles, but stay in place. The horizon expands, the heart slows, and thought itself begins to follow the wave's curve up, over, and down, until the mind becomes as fluid as the element that holds it. As the wind continues its work, the waves weave together, some joining to create larger swells, some cancelling each other to form calm patches. The interference pattern of their crossing is complex, yet it always resolves into beauty. When you see the ocean glitter with crisscrossing ripples, you are seeing interference turned into art. Countless conversations between waves, arriving from different directions, harmonizing without conductor or plan. Each overlap is temporary, each meeting soft. No clash endures. This is the sea's most generous teaching, coexistence without collision. And when storms rise, when waves become steep and white-capped, even then the order remains hidden within chaos. The foaming turbulence, the crash and roar are only surface expressions of energy being redistributed. The sea is never angry. It is simply rearranging power. When the winds finally rest, the ocean's muscles relax. The short, jagged waves merge into long, even swells again. Calm returns not by force, but by patience. This too is a lesson worth carrying into the quiet parts of night, that peace is not the absence of movement, but the return of rhythm after interruption. To fall asleep to the ocean's voice is to let that rhythm write itself into your breathing. Each exhale becomes a wave receding, each inhale a wave approaching. You do not need to understand every motion or the science beneath it. You only need to feel its cadence, the gentle assurance that movement and rest can coexist, that the world can be endlessly active and yet endlessly calm. Beneath the shifting skin of waves lies stability. Beneath noise, silence. Beneath the storm, the deep. The language of waves is the language of balance. And as you listen, you become fluent in it without trying. And so, the sea continues to speak day and night, through every tide, in syllables of foam and sighs. It speaks of distance, of return, of surrender, of endurance. The waves do not seek to arrive anywhere. They simply express the wind's brief intention and then dissolve into stillness. In that cycle lies the secret of peace. We, too, are waves, moments of motion, in a larger stillness destined to rise, to fall, and to rejoin the quiet beneath. Let the sound of that truth wash gently through you as the water folds itself again into its long, slow breathing. 4. Tides and the moon's slow hand. There is a pulse that moves through the world, so patient and ancient that we scarcely notice it except when we stand at the edge of the sea. It is the slow inhale and exhale of the tides, the ocean's steady heartbeat, drawn not by the wind or weather, but by the distant hand of the moon. Every shore feels its pull. Every bay breathes in and out under its quiet command. To know the tides is to understand that gravity can be gentle, that force can be tenderness stretched across space. If you were to watch the sea for an entire day, you would see it rise and fall as if sleeping. The tide comes in, quietly swelling over sand and stone, filling the inlets, smoothing the wrinkles of rock. Hours later, it exhales, retreating, leaving glistening traces of foam and the faint scent of salt on the air. This motion is constant and precise, yet never mechanical. It is alive in its patience. Twice a day, the ocean rises. Twice, it falls. Each movement choreographed by the delicate balance between Earth, Moon, and Sunday. The Moon, though small compared to the Earth, exerts an intimate gravity that tugs at the water. The ocean, fluid and responsive, answers by bulging slightly toward it, creating a high tide beneath the moon. and another on the opposite side, where the Earth itself is pulled a little closer to that same lunar presence. Between these two swells lie the low tides, the spaces between breaths. Imagine that pull extending invisibly through your body as you stand at the shore. The same gravity that stirs the seas also stirs the water in your veins. Your blood, your cells, your inner tides rise and fall, subtly, almost imperceptibly, with the moon's journey. We are not separate from these motions. We are participants in them. Each heartbeat is a small echo of celestial rhythm. When we sleep, our brain waves slow, our breath steadies, our bodies fall into cycles, much like the ocean beneath the moon's hand. For coastal life, this rhythm defines existence. Crabs and sea stars, anemones and clams, all time their waking and feeding to the moon's soft metronome. In tidal pools, creatures live between two worlds, the air's bright exposure and the sea's cool embrace. When the tide retreats, the pools shrink into little universes, their surfaces trembling with trapped reflections. Small fish dart among barnacles. Snails creep along the rim, tracing the limit where water ends. When the tide returns, these pockets reopen to the vastness again, refreshed. It is a constant renewal, a miniature rehearsal of life's larger cycles. There are times when the tides exaggerate themselves, growing higher or lower than usual. These are the spring tides, named not for the season, but for their leap when the sun, moon, and earth align, their combined gravities tugging the oceans in the same direction. The water answers with enthusiasm, reaching farther up the beaches, covering rocks usually bare. 2 weeks later, when the sun and moon stand at right angles to Earth, their pulls partly cancel, creating the gentler neap tides. The difference between these cycles is a rhythm within a rhythm, a layered song of motion that reminds us that harmony is built from balance, not sameness. Standing by a tidal flat at dusk, one can feel the world's breathing more intimately than anywhere else. The sand glistens like silk under a thin film of water, and the retreating tide leaves behind delicate calligraphy, the curving lines of rivulets, the imprint of shells, the mirrored clouds fading in shallow pools. Each low tide writes its temporary story and then waits, knowing the next tide will come to erase it. This is how the sea keeps its diary, by constantly rewriting it. The beauty of impermanence is nowhere clearer than here. Long ago, before clocks and calendars, people lived by the moon and the tides. Fishermen knew when the sea would rise to meet their boats. Farmers knew when the salt marshes would flood and when they would rest. Ancient builders carved calendars into stone that marked the lunar months, tracking the changing heights of water as carefully as we now track time. To them, the moon was not a distant rock, but a companion, a visible god whose silver light whispered to the sea. Even today, the connection remains. When we gaze up at a full moon rising over the water, its light trembling along the waves like a path, we feel something familiar, the recognition of an old rhythm returning. Science tells us that without the moon, Earth's tilt and spin would wander, our seasons unstable, our days shorter, our climate chaotic. The tides, in their gentle persistence, help steady the planet's rotation. Their friction slows the Earth by fractions of a second each century, a minute gift of time we hardly notice. In exchange, the moon drifts slowly away, retreating by a few centimeters each year, a dance of balance across vast emptiness. One pulls, the other yields, both adjusting so that the music continues. It is not unlike the way two people, long accustomed to one another, share a quiet understanding that needs no words. One moves slightly closer, the other slightly back, and between them, something eternal holds steady. In certain places, tides reveal their power in more dramatic ways. In narrow inlets and river mouths, the incoming water gathers into a single moving wall, a tidal bore that travels upstream with the force of a slow, unstoppable breath. It announces itself with a distant roar, then rolls forward, curling and foaming, erasing boundaries between river and sea. In the Bay of Fundy, in Canada, tides can rise higher than the height of a house, shifting the shoreline by miles twice a day. To witness it is to see gravity made visible, an invisible thread pulling entire landscapes to and fro, all because of the moon's gentle persuasion. At night, when the tide creeps higher under the stars, the water glows faintly with the light of plankton stirred by motion. Each tiny spark is a reply to the moon above one cold light calling softly to another. You can walk along the darkened beach and watch the waves ignite with every step, like footprints in a dream. The moon, high and watchful, seems to smile at its reflections scattered across the water. It is hard to tell where the sky ends and the sea begins, and perhaps that confusion is the point to remind us that all boundaries are porous, that what moves above also moves below. When dawn comes, the tide has changed again. The beach stretches wide, cool, and empty, a sheet of pale sand rinsed clean by night. The air carries the scent of salt and life. Birds return to pick at what the water has left, their cries threading through the hush like thoughts waking in a half-sleeping mind. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the moon has turned her face away, already pulling another ocean, another shore. But the memory of her remains in the soft glimmer on the wet sand, in the slow rhythm of waves that continue their breathing. If you listen closely, you can hear the echo of that rhythm in your own chest, a subtle tug, a reminder that you too are moved by distant forces, even as you sleep. The moon's pull does not end at the shore. It reaches into dreams. Some nights you may feel restless, some nights calm, depending on where she stands in the sky. She is the quiet metronome of the sea and of the self. So, when you next watch the tide slip in or draw away, think of it as more than water shifting place. It is the earth bowing to the moon cradling the earth, both engaged in a dance that has lasted billions of years. It is motion as devotion, gravity transformed into grace. The shore, the sand, the foam, all are participants in this unending ceremony. And as the water folds once more over your feet, cooling them with a whisper, you may feel a small tug somewhere deep inside, the same force that moves continents, the same force that will lull you tonight. The tides speak in the moon's slow hand, and through them, the universe hums its steady song of ebb and flow, rise and return, holding everything, including you, in its gentle rhythm. 5 rivers in the sea, beneath the apparent stillness of the ocean, lies a vast, invisible network of motion rivers that never touch a bank, currents that flow without sound or border. They move in looping paths, carrying warmth, salt, and life across the planet, in a quiet choreography that has been unfolding for millions of years. These are the arteries of the world's waters, pulsing not with blood, but with memory, binding distant coasts in an unbroken conversation of temperature and tide. If we could see them from space, glowing with the heat they carry, they would look like living threads, weaving one ocean into another, sewing the planet's climates into a single, breathing whole. Every current begins as a gesture of wind or difference, a nudge from the atmosphere, a whisper of imbalance between warm and cold, dense and light. The sun, steady and patient, heats the sun equator more than the poles, and in that simple act begins a grand circulation. Warm surface water, made lighter by heat, drifts toward higher latitudes, while colder, denser water sinks and flows back toward the tropics below. Between these opposites, the ocean's great conveyor belts form, spiraling in gyres that trace circles the size of continents. The Earth's rotation adds its own twist, the Coriolis effect bending these movements into graceful arcs. In the northern hemisphere, the currents turn clockwise, and in the southern, counterclockwise, like two vast hands stirring the same bowl. To imagine a current is to imagine motion without visible form. The Gulf Stream, for instance, begins in the warm Caribbean and drifts northward along the American coast before veering east across the Atlantic, carrying tropical heat to Europe. It is a highway of warmth, broad as a mountain range, moving at the pace of a gentle walk. Its waters, though unseen, shape weather, soften winters, and color skies. The same ocean that laps against Florida's coral keys will one day touch the shores of Norway, transformed yet familiar. The Kuroshio Current, its Pacific counterpart, sweeps north from the Philippines along Japan, a mirror stream that carries similar warmth and similar gifts. To stand on the shores of these distant lands and feel the same mild air is to understand connection in its most fluid form. Currents are not simple flows. They are layers upon layers of movement, each depth telling a slightly different story. Near the surface, winds sculpt the top 100 meters of the sea into patterns that mimic the sky. Beneath that, slower streams slip in opposing directions, balancing the momentum above. Farther down still, the deep waters, dense, cold, and rich with nutrients, creep along the seafloor, crossing basins and continents in journeys that can take centuries. This is the thermohaline circulation, the global conveyor that moves by density alone, powered by differences in temperature and salinity. At the poles, where ice forms and salt is left behind, the water grows heavy and sinks, beginning a long voyage that will end perhaps thousands of years later at the equator, rising again as warmth renews it. Each drop of deep water, unseen and unsung, participates in the slow breathing of the planet. Sometimes the surface winds and deeper flows meet in acts of generosity. Along certain coasts, Peru, California, Namibia, steady winds push the surface water away from land. In its absence, the deep water rises to replace it, bringing with it a wealth of nutrients from the dark. This upwelling feeds vast blooms of plankton, which feed fish, which feed everything else. Entire ecosystems owe their abundance to these invisible elevators of life. The world's great fisheries thrive where the sea remembers to give back. When you taste salt upon your lips at the edge of the water, you are tasting the remnants of those same circulations, the minerals and lives lifted from depths where light cannot reach. Even in the open ocean, where no land interrupts the flow, the currents form patterns of exquisite balance. The great gyres, the North and South Pacific, the North and South Atlantic, the Indian Ocean gyre rotates slowly, gathering surface waters into gentle hills and valleys of pressure. Within these turning wheels, floating matter collects plankton, driftwood, and, tragically now, plastic, tracing the outlines of the planet's unseen architecture. Yet within the gyres, calm reigns. Sailors of old called these regions doldrums, where wind and wave alike seem to pause. Here the sea holds its breath, the surrounding circulations keeping the center still. It is as if the world itself needs a point of rest in every rotation, a moment of stillness within motion. These rivers in the sea also carry music, though we cannot hear it directly. The sound of their flow is too low, too slow for human ears. But instruments placed deep in the water have recorded the infrasonic hum, a planetary murmur that never stops. This sound travels great distances, echoing off continental slopes and island chains, resonating like the bass line of the Earth's song. Whales use these channels to send their calls across oceans, following the paths of least resistance carved by the same physics that guide the currents. In this way, life and water share the same highways, guided by the same invisible maps. If you close your eyes and imagine drifting upon one of these currents, you can feel the sensation of timeless travel. There is no sense of beginning or destination, only movement that sustains itself. Beneath you, thermoclines separate warmth from coolness, like layers of silk. Above, wind teases the surface into small ripples, scattering light into ever-changing mosaics. You are not being carried somewhere, you are part of the carrying. The ocean does not hurry. It simply continues. Even storms, when they pass, only stir the upper skin. The deeper current below goes on, unbothered, unchanged. In some places, the meeting of these flows gives birth to wonder, where the cold Labrador current meets the warm Gulf Stream off Newfoundland. Fog forms thick as breath, rolling like liquid glass between temperatures two extremes. Elsewhere, along Africa's southern tip, the mingling of the Benguela and Agulhas currents creates eddies that spin off into spirals, mixing waters from opposite oceans. Each eddy is a transient whirlpool, a circular poem written in salt and heat. These spinning forms carry nutrients, life, and color, each a reminder that change is the ocean's constant way of remembering itself. The deep, slow movement of water across basins also ties together the carbon story of the world. As surface waters sink in polar regions, they carry with them the carbon absorbed from the air, a breath exhaled by forests and lungs alike, taken in by the ocean, hidden for centuries in its cool, dark heart. Later, when those waters rise again, that same carbon re-emerges, feeding life or returning to the sky. The ocean, in this way, keeps the planet balanced, storing and releasing in cycles too vast for one lifetime to see. To sleep with this knowledge is to feel comfort in scale, to know that even what feels final is only part of an unseen exchange. If you were to trace a single molecule of water through these paths, from the equator to the pole, down into the abyss, across the floor, and back up again, its journey might last 1,000 years. It would see no horizon, no light, no end, only constant movement through gradients of temperature and salt. Yet, it would always belong. The molecule would drift through schools of fish, through forests of plankton, past mountains of coral, through storms and calms, always serving the same quiet purpose, to carry balance. The ocean's currents are not chaotic. They are careful. Every loop, every swirl, every drift is a line in the poem of equilibrium. When night falls and the surface cools, the upper layer of the sea grows still, mirroring the sky. But below, the rivers continue their work, unseen. They carry warmth where it is needed, return coolness where it is due. They cross boundaries as though none exist. And perhaps this is their truest lesson, that separation is an illusion. The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, these are names we have given to what is, in truth, one continuous body, always flowing into itself. So as you listen to the slow murmur of waves tonight, imagine the hidden motion beneath. Picture those unseen streams curling around the globe, touching coasts you have never visited, carrying particles of warmth that may one day pass beneath your very feet. The world is breathing through them, endlessly. They are the veins of the earth, and through them, the planet dreams in liquid motion. To understand them is not to measure them, but to feel their calm. Persistence, the way they travel without haste, the way they never stop. You, too, are part of that circulation. One small current in a larger sea, moving gently onward toward the horizon of rest. 6. Salt, density, and the sigh of the thermohaline. If you listen carefully to the ocean, beneath the waves, beneath the echo of wind and whale and rain, you may hear a slower rhythm, a whisper of weight shifting, a quiet sigh that belongs to the deep. It is the breath of the thermohaline circulation, the great conveyor of the sea, born from salt and temperature, density and gravity, patience and time. It moves in darkness, without hurry, without pause. It has no shape visible to the eye, yet its touch can be felt in every breeze that crosses the continents, every season that blooms or fades. It is the long exhalation of the planet itself, moving in cycles that last centuries. To understand this quiet machinery, one must start with something simple. Not all water is the same. Each droplet holds its own identity, a certain mix of minerals, a particular weight, a memory of where it last met the air. Salt is not merely flavor, but fingerprint. It decides how heavy the water will be, how easily it will sink or rise, how readily it will mingle with its neighbors. The word halina means salty, thermo means warm. Together, they describe the ocean's hidden architecture, the way differences in heat and salinity build invisible walls, layers, stairways, and corridors through which water travels, slowly exchanging places in an ancient dance. When sunlight falls on the equator, it warms the surface water, making it light and buoyant. Meanwhile, in the polar regions, cold winds chill the surface until it grows dense enough to sink. There, as sea ice forms, it leaves behind salt, concentrating what remains and making the surrounding water heavier still. That dense, briny water begins to descend, slipping beneath lighter layers like silk sliding under silk. This is the beginning of a journey, one that will take a parcel of water from the Arctic or Antarctic to the equator and back again, crossing entire oceans, gliding over underwater mountains and plains. Some call this the global conveyor belt, but the name feels too mechanical for something so alive. It is more like the bloodstream of the planet, pulsing with a heart that beats once every 1,000 years. At the surface, where waves mix heat and oxygen, life flourishes. But as the water sinks into the cold dark, it carries with it traces of that life, the oxygen it once touched, the carbon it absorbed, the salts and nutrients dissolved within. In this way, each descent becomes an act of remembrance. The deep sea holds the memory of the surface, stored in every layer like pages of an unwritten book. Scientists have learned to read these pages by measuring the ratio of oxygen and carbon, the fingerprints of salinity, the signatures of temperature. Through them, they can trace the age of the water, its birthplace, its long voyage through the depths. Some waters are young, only decades old. Others have not seen the surface in more than 1,000 years. The Antarctic bottom water, born in the Southern Ocean, is the heaviest of all. It forms where cold, dry winds sweep across the sea ice, chilling the surface until it freezes and expels salt. The dense brine plunges into the abyss, cascading down continental slopes in slow underwater waterfalls, spreading like a ghostly river across the ocean floor. It creeps northward beneath the Atlantic, the Indian, the Pacific, hugging the bottom like a memory that refuses to rise. Above it flows a lighter layer, the North Atlantic deep water formed when chilled, salty water sinks near Greenland. Between these two great currents, the ocean breathes. They move in opposite directions, one downward, one upward, yet neither opposes the other. Together they form the planet's slowest conversation, a dialogue of density. As these waters travel, they mix, but not easily. The ocean is stratified, its layers stacked by weight. Warm water rests lightly above, cool water lies beneath, and between them stretches a boundary, the thermocline, where temperature changes rapidly with depth. This invisible line separates worlds. Above it, the restless, sunlit realm of storms and plankton. Below it, the stable, dim kingdom of stillness. Only in certain places, where wind and current conspire, do the layers blend enough to bring the nutrients of the deep up toward the surface, feeding new life in cycles that echo across time. There is something meditative about density, the way it decides without argument, how it settles what must rise and what must fall. Warmth expands, coolness contracts, freshness floats, salt sinks. The sea abides by these quiet laws, turning them into art. When you stand in the shallows and feel the subtle temperature shift around your ankles, you are sensing the boundary of layers in Tay. Miniature, a whisper of thermohaline balance. Even your own body, mostly water, obeys similar rules. Blood, lymph, breath all move in gradients, all respond to differences in pressure, temperature, and density. We are not separate from the physics of the sea. We are its small echo walking upright. In certain places, deep water returns to the surface after centuries of travel. This upwelling brings with it not only nutrients, but the faint ghosts of ancient climates. The gases trapped within carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, carry records of ice ages and interglacials, of volcanic winters and tropical blooms. Scientists studying these waters can read the planet's history as if through layers of transparent glass. The ocean, it seems, keeps a diary written in density and salt, in cold and warmth, in the long breath of the thermohaline. The stability of this circulation is delicate. A change in temperature, a surge of fresh meltwater, a shift in wind can alter the balance. If too much fresh water enters the North Atlantic from melting ice, it can make the surface too light to sink, slowing the conveyor. The planet's heat distribution would falter. Climates could shift. Yet even in such fragility there is resilience. The system wobbles, pauses, then finds a new rhythm. Nature is patient with itself. It always remembers how to continue, even if the pattern changes. If you could follow one of these deep currents drift along with a molecule of heavy, salty water as it glides down the slopes of Antarctica, you would move through darkness more complete than any night on land. You would pass beneath floating snow of organic matter, the slow rain of life returning to rest. You would feel the pressure increase until it pressed as heavy as stone, yet still the water would move, flowing with quiet conviction. Around you, creatures adapted to shadow would pulse with their own faint lights. Lanternfish, jellyforms, transparent worms, the faint stars of an undersea cosmos. Your journey would take you past seamounts, where mineral chimneys vent warm water, where bacteria eat rock and create new life from the chemistry of the Earth itself. And still you would move on, unhurried, one with the pulse of the planet's deep circulation. When at last you began to rise, perhaps in a distant upwelling off South America or in the Indian Ocean, centuries would have passed. The sunlight would return slowly, filtering down in beams that widen like forgiveness. The water around you would warm, freshen, lose its weight. You would feel yourself becoming light again, drawn toward the surface where air and sea exchange their gifts. The circle would close. Every descent meets its ascent. Every deep breath finds its release. On the surface, where waves glisten and the sky bends low, few would guess at the vast machinery below the endless sigh of water seeking balance, the global circulation that ties together the coldest and warmest parts of the Earth. Yet even without knowing, we feel it. The calm that comes over us when looking out at the horizon is the body recognizing order. Somewhere inside, we understand that the same physics keeping the sea in motion also holds our lives in quiet equilibrium. Warmth and coolness, weight and lightness, sinking and rising, all things find their balance eventually. So tonight, as you breathe, imagine the deep ocean breathing with you. Each inhale a gathering of warmth, each exhale a release into stillness. Imagine salt settling softly to the seafloor, where it waits to begin its long journey once more. The world, though vast and restless, is held together by these small, patient exchanges. The thermohaline sigh continues beneath storms, beneath ice, beneath the pulse of time itself. It is the heart's slow tide, the rhythm that keeps the blue planet alive, a promise that balance, though unseen, is always moving quietly beneath the surface, holding everything, including us, in its gentle and enduring flow. 7. The breath of the ocean. If you stand by the sea at dawn, before the first wind stirs and the air still holds the hush of night, you might sense a rhythm beneath the sound of the waves, a slow, invisible breathing. The ocean inhales and exhales, not with lungs, but through its living surface, exchanging gases with the sky in a conversation that has been continuous since the world began. Every ripple, every bubble, every drifting current participates in this dialogue between air and water, atmosphere and abyss. The ocean breathes for the planet, quietly, without asking for recognition. Its rhythm is slower than ours, but infinitely steadier, the kind of breath that makes life possible. When sunlight touches the sea, it awakens its smallest inhabitants. Phytoplankton, the drifting plants of the ocean, rise from the dark to the light, like dust motes in a sunbeam. They begin their day by drawing in carbon dioxide dissolved in the water and exhaling oxygen in return. With their delicate green chemistry, they transform the invisible into the essential. These microscopic creatures, too small to see yet vast in number, produce more than half the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Every second breath you take is a gift from their unseen labor. You carry the ocean within you, not metaphorically, but physically. Its breath is your breath, its exhale your inhale. This exchange happens quietly across the surface, an infinite film where air meets water. The ocean absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, dissolving it into molecules that drift downward and become part of the sea's great circulation. Some of this carbon feeds new life, some settles slowly to the depths, stored in the sediment for millennia, a long sigh tucked into the folds of time. Through this process, the ocean moderates the world's breath-inhaling excess, releasing calm. Without it, the air would thicken, the planet would fever, and the cycle of seasons would lose its balance. At night, when the sun disappears, the exchange continues, though the rhythm changes. Without light, the phytoplankton rest from their work of making oxygen, and the creatures of the sea begin to consume what they have made. Respiration replaces photosynthesis. Oxygen is drawn down as life goes about its quiet business of living. Fish drift through the water, their gills filtering the air dissolved within. Crabs and worms move along the seafloor, each taking in and releasing, breathing in patterns too subtle for the eye. Even bacteria participate, decomposing what has fallen from above, using the last traces of oxygen to finish their work. The balance of inhale and exhale is maintained. The sea never stops breathing. It merely shifts its tempo, like a sleeper turning in dreams. In some parts of the ocean, this breath grows thin. At depths where light does not reach and organic matter rains down in abundance, bacteria consume oxygen faster than it can be replaced. These are the oxygen minimum zones, silent valleys in the sea where only the most patient of creatures can live. Some worms and fish have evolved to survive on whispers of oxygen, others on none at all. They use chemical tricks, slow metabolisms, borrowed methods of survival. Even here, where breath itself seems impossible, life continues, finding ways to persist in the stillness. These regions remind us that the ocean, though vast and sustaining, is also fragile. Its breath not endless but earned. The surface of the ocean is a skin as sensitive as our own. Every rise in temperature, every change in wind or chemistry, affects how easily gases pass between air and water. When storms churn the surface, mixing the layers, the ocean inhales more deeply, drawing carbon and oxygen downward. When the sea warms and stills, a film forms that resists exchange, like the surface tension of a held breath. Climate change, is not just a matter of heat, it is a matter of respiration. The warmer the sea, water, the less oxygen it can hold, and the more strained the sea's breathing becomes. The ocean's sigh lengthens. It grows heavy with carbon, weary but still trying, still turning sunlight into air for the world above. If we could visualize this process, it would look like a living pulse encircling the globe. The Southern Ocean, wide and cold, draws in carbon with great hunger. The tropical seas, warm and bright, exhale oxygen like fields of invisible grass. The equatorial currents carry this breath east and west, while the polar currents carry it north and south, blending it into the air we all share. In this way, the planet's atmosphere is not just above us, it is within us, within the sea, within every cell that divides and grows. To breathe is to participate in the same motion that stirs the oceans and spins the clouds. Even the creatures of the deep, far from sunlight, depend on this breath. The oxygen made at the surface is carried down by currents until it reaches the abyss, where it sustains animals that have never seen the sky. The deep sea, though dark and cold, is laced with the memory of air. Its life depends on the long patience of circulation. A molecule of oxygen may take 1,000 years to travel from the surface to the bottom and back again. In this, we find a lesson in endurance, that even the smallest act of respiration, the quietest exchange, can have consequences far beyond our sight. There are places, too, where the sea seems to breathe visibly. Along some coasts, the upwelling of deep water brings bubbles of gas to the surface, a faint shimmer that catches the light. Near hydrothermal vents, entire communities live off the chemistry of these unseen exhalations. There, life does not depend on sunlight, but on gases rising from the Earth's crust. Hydrogen sulfide, methane, carbon dioxide, all woven into food webs by bacteria that turn chemistry into sustenance. Even in darkness, even where oxygen is scarce, the ocean finds a way to inhale and exhale, transforming stone and heat into life. We rarely think of water as alive, yet it behaves as though it were taking in, releasing, adjusting, balancing. Each droplet on the surface is a gate between worlds, between air and sea, sky and life. The act of breathing is not limited to lungs or leaves. It is a property of the planet itself. The wind that fills your lungs once touched the surface of the Pacific, exchanging atoms with plankton that are, at this moment, blooming somewhere in the sunlight. The breath you release will one day return there, dissolved into water, feeding another cycle. This continuity is not poetry but fact, a physical truth that binds every living thing. To listen to the ocean's breath is to hear time itself at rest. Waves may break with urgency, winds may roar, but beneath it all lies a steadiness, a calm pulse that underlies every movement. It is the same pulse that moves through forests, through bloodstreams, through wind-blown dunes. The world is one great organism breathing in slow motion, each part giving and taking in perfect reciprocity. Even the quiet moments between breaths are full of meaning, pauses where balance holds, where nothing is forced, where stillness becomes its own kind of activity. As night settles and you lie near the sound of the sea, you may begin to match its rhythm unconsciously. Inhale as the water gathers, exhale as it retreats. The sound of surf becomes a mirror of your own body, vast, cyclical, eternal. The boundary between self and ocean softens until you can no longer tell which breath belongs to whom. In that merging lies a kind of peace. You are reminded that life, at its simplest, is exchange of air, of water, of light, of care. The ocean knows this instinctively. It has practiced it for eons. And so the sea continues its breathing, slow, patient, endless. It inhales our exhalations, exhales the air we need. It carries carbon away, turns sunlight into oxygen, teaches through its very rhythm the art of balance. To breathe with the ocean is to remember what it means to live in harmony with something larger than yourself. It is to trust that every exhale finds its home, every inhale its source, and that the cycle will continue long after you have drifted into sleep. The breath of the ocean is the breath of the world. And tonight, if you listen closely, you may hear it sigh softly through the dark, a lullaby of air and water, rising and falling in infinite, tranquil exchange. 2:8. Plankton, drifters of light. If you were to scoop a single handful of seawater at dawn, it would look empty, clear, simple, alive only in reflection. But held up to sunlight, that same handful would reveal a cosmos of motion. Within it drift billions of lives, so small they elude the naked eye, yet so abundant they outnumber the stars in the sky. This invisible multitude forms the foundation of the ocean's world. Plankton, from the Greek planktos, meaning drifter, are the wanderers of the sea, creatures without the strength to swim against the currents, carried endlessly by water's will. They are the first breath of life, and, in many ways, its continuation. There are two great families among them, the plant-like phytoplankton and the animal-like zooplankton. Together they form an unseen forest, a floating continent of light and hunger. The phytoplankton are the architects of oxygen, catching sunlight through their delicate membranes, spinning it into sugar, and releasing breath back into the water and sky. They are diatoms encased in glass, coccolithophores armored with chalk, and cyanobacteria so ancient they helped shape the atmosphere we depend on. Each cell is a small miracle, a bubble of self-contained chemistry that converts the sun into sustenance. In their countless billions, they create the base of the food web, feeding everything from tiny krill to the greatest whales. The zooplankton, by contrast, are wanderers of flesh, larvae of fish and crustaceans, minute jellies, copepods with their pulsing legs, and translucent amphipods that drift like ghosts through the water. They are the night shift of the sea, rising under the cover of darkness to feed on the phytoplankton near the surface, and sinking again at dawn to the safety of the deep. This daily migration, the largest on Earth, happens every 24 hours, yet passes unseen by human eyes. Entire nations of creatures move in unison, following the rhythm of light. It is as if the ocean itself were breathing vertically, drawing life upward by night and returning it to its depths by day. In the language of science, the plankton are measured in size from the smallest picoplankton, less than a micron wide, to the gelatinous giants of the macroplankton, like jellyfish that drift with slow, dreamlike pulses. But these names do not capture their beauty. To watch them under magnification is to witness an alien ballet. Diatoms, etched like stained glass windows, spiral gracefully in invisible currents. Dinoflagellates, spinning with two whirling flagella, flash with light when disturbed, transforming the water into liquid starlight. Radiolarians build intricate skeletons of silica, geometric lattices that would humble any architect. They are living geometry, shaped by the same mathematics that sculpt snowflakes and galaxies. The life of plankton is brief, yet it defines the fate of the ocean. When they bloom as they do each spring in temperate seas, they turn whole regions green from space. Satellites record these blooms as swirls of color, spirals of turquoise and jade, moving with the currents like strokes of paint upon a canvas that covers half the planet. These explosions of life are driven by sunlight and nutrient, by upwelling waters that bring ancient minerals to the surface. When the bloom ends, much of it sinks, carrying carbon with it into the deep sea, a rain of life turned into sediment. In this way, plankton regulate not only the ocean's hunger, but also the Earth's climate. They are the world's smallest alchemists, transmuting sunlight into oxygen, carbon into stone, some nights In calm bays or along tropical shores, the plankton reveal themselves through light. Disturbed by motion, they flash with bioluminescence, a sudden electric blue that blooms along the wake of a passing boat or the sweep of a swimmer's hand. The effect is mesmerizing, as if the stars have spilled into the sea. This light is not merely decoration, it is communication, defense, and attraction. Certain dinoflagellates emit these flashes to startle predators or to lure larger hunters to their attackers. Others use it to signal mates or to cloak themselves in brilliance as they drift. Bioluminescence is one of nature's most ancient languages, shared across species and depths, a reminder that even in the darkest waters, life finds a way to shine. The plankton's world is one of constant movement and transformation. They drift through layers of light that thin with depth, from the bright shallows where photosynthesis thrives to the dim blue twilight where the last rays dissolve. Their lives are brief days, weeks, perhaps a month, but their cycles are eternal. When a plankton dies, it becomes food for something else, or it falls as part of the marine snow, that slow shower of organic matter descending through the dark. The deep sea feeds on this quiet rain, recycling the energy that began in the sunlight far above. Through these endless exchanges, the plankton connect every level of the ocean, from the surface sparkle to the abyssal plain. The story of plankton is also the story of time. Long ago, their ancient ancestors filled the air with oxygen, paving the way for complex life to evolve. The chalk cliffs of Dover, the limestone of mountains, the white shells scattered along beaches, all are monuments to their tiny labor. Over millions of years, their skeletons have accumulated, compressed, and lifted by tectonic forces, transforming into stone that holds the memory of vanished seas. Every pebble of chalk is a fossilized whisper of plankton, a record of the light they once captured. When we hold such a stone in our hand, we are holding the remains of light itself, crystallized into permanence. Even today, plankton remain both fragile and powerful. Changes in temperature, acidity, and nutrient balance can shift their abundance, altering the entire oceanic web. A warm year can delay a bloom, starving fish larvae that depend on it. Excess nutrients from rivers can cause blooms too large, choking waters in decay. In their silence, plankton mirror our own fragility. In their abundance, they remind us of resilience. The sea breathes through them, adapts through them, speaks through their endless drift. If you could float alongside a planktonic bloom at sunrise, you would see the ocean glowing softly with life. The water would shimmer green and gold, the surface rippling with the first touch of wind. Beneath, billions of tiny cells would be turning light into substance, invisible to your eyes, yet fundamental to your being. Around them, zooplankton would stir, small hearts pulsing, eyes catching the faint brightness filtering down. The sea would hum with activity too fine for sound, too delicate for sight. It would feel like standing in a field where every blade of grass exhales light instead of scent. And when night came, that same water might light up at your passing, as though the sea itself remembered the stars. Each movement, each ripple, each drop would respond in kind, a glowing acknowledgement that you had brushed against something living, ancient, and kind. This is the secret of the plankton. They are both ephemeral and eternal, dying in seconds, yet shaping worlds over eons. They remind us that greatness is not always visible, that the foundations of life are often transparent, drifting quietly just beneath the surface. So, as you rest and breathe tonight, imagine yourself floating among them, weightless, surrounded by invisible light, carried by currents that know no direction but continuity. Feel their calm insistence, their unending work, their luminous patience. The plankton are not merely the drifters of the sea, they are the dreamers of it. And through their quiet, unceasing motion, they teach us the most tender lesson of all, that even the smallest beings, moving without will, can hold the power to transform the world with nothing more than light and time. 9. Colors that make their own night. When the sun leaves the ocean, it does not take all the light with it. Some remains not in the sky, not on the waves, but within the water itself. As dusk falls, the sea begins to shimmer with its own secret colors, glows that pulse and fade, flares of green and blue that seem to breathe. These are not reflections, but creations. The ocean, in its quiet genius, makes its own light in the dark. It does this through the living lanterns of bioluminescence organisms that have learned to carry fire without heat, that bloom in darkness and turn the night into a slow-moving constellation. The first time you see bioluminescence, it feels like a dream you almost remember. You may walk along a beach under the new moon, your feet sinking into cool sand, the waves gentle and slow. Then, as the water curls and breaks, it flares bright blue, a soft explosion that vanishes before you can believe it. Every step leaves a glowing print, every splash a sudden bloom of light. The water seems alive, responding to touch, aware of your presence. It is the sea's quiet applause, a luminous response to movement. No matter how often you see it, the moment never loses its wonder, because it feels less like science and more like grace. But science, when spoken softly, only deepens the awe. This light comes from countless tiny beings, dinoflagellates and other plankton that float near the surface, each equipped with a chemical lantern. Inside their cells, two substances meet: luciferin, which can emit light, and luciferase, an enzyme that triggers the reaction. When disturbed, the mixture flashes into life, a burst of blue-green radiance lasting only a second. For the plankton, it is a defense mechanism, a sudden glare meant to startle predators or draw the attention of something larger that might eat the attacker instead. For us, it is magic written in chemistry, a language of warning translated as wonder. The colors vary subtly across the ocean's breadth. In tropical shallows, the glow is turquoise, liquid lightning. In colder waters, it leans toward pale blue, soft and ghostly. Some jellies and worms in the deep emit green or even red, rare hues in the colorless dark. Certain fish carry organs called photophores, tiny, precise lamps that they can turn on or off at will, dotting their bodies like constellations designed for communication and camouflage. These lights are not borrowed from the sun, but self-made, an invention of survival. The creatures of the deep have learned that where light cannot reach, they must become the light themselves. Consider the lanternfish, small and silver, living in the twilight zone where sunlight fades to nothing. Along its belly, a line of photophores glows faintly downward, matching the filtered light from above. To predators below, the fish becomes invisible, its own glow disguising its shadow. This adaptation, called counter-illumination, is one of nature's most elegant tricks in visibility. Achieved by imitation, the fish becomes its own sky. The squid, too, carries lamps beneath its body, adjusting their brightness to disappear into the faint surface light. Even in darkness, life finds ways to blend, to vanish, to persist. Deeper still, in the midnight zone where no trace of sunlight remains, the light becomes language. Here, communication depends not on color or shape, but on flashes, pulses, and patterns. Some fish lure prey with a single glowing lure dangling before their jaws, like a candle in a window on a black night. The anglerfish, its body barely larger than a hand, carries a bacterial lantern at the tip of a flexible spine above its mouth. The glow flickers like a heartbeat, attracting curious victims. When they come close, they vanish in a single gulp. The light feeds the darkness, and the darkness, in turn, creates new light. Others use bioluminescence for love rather than hunger. In the deep sea, where partners may be separated by kilometers of black water, light becomes a beacon for union. Certain species of shrimp, squid, and fish emit distinct patterns, blinking codes that only their kind can recognize. Two flashes, pause, then one a message that says, "I am here." The deep is full of such signals, silent Morse tapping across the vast dark. If one could see them all at once, the abyss would look like a sky inverted, stars, flickering not above but below, galaxies swimming in water instead of space. The phenomenon is not limited to the deep. Even near the surface, some shores experience what sailors call milky seas, immense regions where the water glows continuously for hours or even days. These are vast gatherings of luminous bacteria, Vibrio havaei and others, which emit a soft, even light across areas as large as cities. From a ship at night, such a sea looks unreal. The horizon dissolves, the air glows faintly, and the vessel appears to drift through liquid moonlight. Sailors of old told stories of enchanted waters, of spirits beneath the surface, but the truth is quieter, trillions of microorganisms shining together, for no audience at all. It is easy to see why ancient travelers gave the sea its mythic qualities. When they saw light rising from the water, they believed the ocean had a soul. They were not wrong. The glow is not random. It follows rhythms of the moon, the temperature of the air, the movement of tides. It is life responding to touch, to change, to the unseen pulse of the world. When the sea shines, it is as if it remembers daylight and refuses to let it go. It carries the sun's absence like an ember and lets it burn gently through the night. Bioluminescence is only one form of light the ocean holds. There is also fluorescence, a borrowed glow, a temporary transformation. In shallow reefs, corals and sponges absorb ultraviolet light and re-emit it in vivid greens and reds, turning darkness into a glowing garden. Under blue light, these reefs shimmer as if made of stained glass, each organism capturing invisible energy and turning it visible. Even deep-sea creatures use fluorescence to find each other in ways we can barely imagine, seeing colors our eyes cannot. For them, the ocean is never truly dark, only painted in wavelengths beyond human sight. The ocean's light teaches us something about endurance. Where there is darkness, there is adaptation. Where sunlight fades, life invents its own glow. Each flicker, each spark, each shimmer is a declaration. I am still here. The smallest flash of a plankton, the slow pulse of a jelly, the steady lantern of a fish. Together they form an orchestra of persistence. It is easy to romanticize this beauty, but beneath it lies hard necessity. In the deep, light means survival. A glow can feed, protect, or deceive. It can attract life or hide it. The ocean's colors are not merely decoration. They are strategies written in radiance. When we gaze at bioluminescent waves from the shore, we are witnessing a moment of translation between worlds. The language of cells and chemistry speaking directly to the eye. Each spark in the water is a word in that language, each ripple a sentence. We do not need to understand its grammar to feel its meaning. It says, life persists. It says, darkness is never absolute. It says, beauty does not need an audience. The sea glows for its own reasons, as much part of its breathing as tide or current. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the water around you glowing softly, every movement answered with light. Picture yourself floating through that luminous calm, your fingertips leaving trails of blue fire, your breath sending small galaxies swirling outward. Above you, the stars. Below you, their reflection in living form. Between the two, a single presence, one sky mirrored in another. The sea, making its own night, reminds us that even in absence, something shines. Darkness is not the opposite of light, but its quiet continuation, the space where it can rest and begin again. 10 Architects of the Reef. When sunlight falls into clear tropical water, it enters a cathedral built not by human hands but by small, patient architects, coral polyps, creatures softer than breath, constructing cities of stone. Beneath the shimmering surface, these colonies rise like sculptures of color and geometry, delicate yet enduring, humming with life. The reef is a monument to cooperation, built grain by beings that never sleep, always reaching outward, always growing toward the light. It is both fortress and garden, a breathing landscape made of calcium and color, as intricate as lace and as ancient as song. Each coral is a small animal, not a plant, though it looks like one. It begins as a single polyp, no larger than a seed, drifting through the sea until it finds a solid place to rest. A rock, a shell, an old skeleton of coral from a generation before. There it attaches, unfurls its tentacles, and begins to build. From the minerals dissolved in seawater, it draws calcium carbonate, forming a cup of stone around itself. As it grows, it divides, creating clones that share its structure and its genes. Together, thousands of polyps form a colony, and countless colonies join to create a reef. Over centuries, these reefs grow into mountains, their edges carved by waves, their roots stretching deep into the sea. Some of the world's great coral structures are older than the pyramids, still living, still adding millimeter upon millimeter each year. Within their tissues, corals harbor another kind of life, tiny algae called zooxanthellae, partners in a mutual exchange. The algae live within the coral's cells, sharing their sunlight-driven bounty in return for shelter. By day, they perform photosynthesis, turning light into energy, and feeding their coral hosts with the sugars they produce. By night, when the reef glows faintly under moonlight, the corals extend their tentacles to catch drifting plankton, feeding in the quiet hours between tides. This partnership between animal and plant, light and stone, is one of nature's oldest alliances. Together, they create not only a structure but a rhythm, day for light, night for nourishment, balance sustained in shimmering stillness. The reef, though solid to the touch, is a living skin stretched over time. Within its crevices and towers reside countless beings, fish painted like dreams, crabs in armor, sponges breathing water through unseen pores. Each coral outcrop is a neighborhood, each branching coral a forest, each lagoon a nursery. In 1 square meter of reef, hundreds of species may share space, their lives woven together in delicate balance. Schools of small fish dart between coral fingers, flashing silver like thoughts. Parrotfish graze on the limestone, their teeth grinding coral into fine white sand that drifts into beaches. Sea cucumbers crawl along the floor, cleaning what others leave behind. The reef is never still. It hums with motion, a slow pulse that carries through every scale and color. To swim among corals is to move through an underwater city lit by borrowed light. Shafts of sun filter down, scattering across coral heads like stained glass on marble. The water magnifies the colors violet and emerald, saffron and rose hues more vivid than air could ever hold. Small fish shimmer between shadows. Anemones wave like flags in an invisible breeze. Everywhere, life seems to breathe in unison. There is a silence to this place, but it is not empty. It is full of listening. Every movement here feels deliberate, gentle, as if the whole reef has agreed on a slower measure of time. Reefs are not all alike. Some, like fringing reefs, grow close to shore, hugging the land's contour. Others, barrier reefs, stand apart, encircling lagoons with protective arms of limestone. The most mysterious are the atolls, rings of coral that once surrounded volcanic islands, now long vanished beneath the waves. What remains is a circular memory of land, a living halo in the open sea. Over millennia, these structures grow upward, keeping pace with rising waters, always striving toward the light. In their persistence lies a quiet lesson. Growth does not need haste. The coral's patience shapes worlds. Each year, when the temperature, moonlight, and tides align perfectly, corals release their eggs and sperm into the water in a synchronized bloom. Across hundreds of miles of ocean, reefs pulse with pink and gold clouds of life, drifting upward like inverted snowfall. For a few hours, the sea becomes a sky of rising stars, each droplet carrying the potential of new beginnings. Some of these tiny lives will find shelter and begin the long process of building again. Others will feed the creatures that share the reef, completing the cycle of renewal that defines all of nature's architecture. Yet, for all its beauty and resilience, the reef is vulnerable. It thrives only within narrow conditions, warm but not too warm, clear but not too still, rich in sunlight but poor in excess nutrient. When the sea grows too hot, the partnership between coral and algae falters. The algae, stressed by heat, produce toxins that harm their host, and the coral expels them, turning ghostly white. This is coral bleaching, not death, but the beginning of suffering. Without their algae, corals starve, their vibrant colors fading to bone. If the water cools, they can recover. If not, the reef begins to crumble, and the city of life falls silent. Bleaching is more than a biological event. It is an emotional one. To witness a reef lose its color is to see time unravel. Generations of slow construction undone by seasons of heat. The reef, which has endured ice ages and storms, now faces a fever brought by our hands. Yet even here, hope persists. Scientists and conservationists nurture corals in nurseries, growing fragments that can be transplanted back into the sea. In protected waters, some reefs recover, resilient, reborn. The ocean, given rest, remembers how to heal. The coral's architecture extends beyond beauty. It shelters coastlines from storms, its ridges breaking waves before they reach the shore. It supports millions of people who depend on it for food and livelihood. It stores carbon, filters water, and provides compounds for medicine. It is a living library of adaptation, each polyp a page written in calcium and light. In its complexity lies a quiet wisdom. Cooperation creates strength. No single coral could build a reef alone. Only together, through generations, can they form something enduring. To look upon a coral colony is to see both fragility and eternity entwined. Each structure, no matter how vast, began as something microscopic. Each ridge and curve was shaped not by force, but by patience. The reef teaches that permanence can be gentle, that the most lasting creations grow in stillness. Even as storms pass overhead, tearing fragments away, the coral continues its work, undisturbed by urgency. It builds, rests, and builds again. If you listen closely underwater, you can hear the reef speak, not in words, but in sound, the crackle of shrimp, the hum of fish, the faint rasp of grazing parrotfish. Scientists have recorded these symphonies and played them back to damaged reefs, and new life has returned. Drawn by the familiar music of home, the reef responds to sound as a forest does to rain, awakening in waves of recollection. Even in silence, it waits to be remembered. As night falls on the reef, bioluminescent corals shimmer faintly, and fish retreat into crevices. The moonlight touches the surface, filtering down in silver beams. The water is warm, the current soft. The city asleep yet breathing. Somewhere, a coral polyp releases its first tendril of stone, beginning a wall that may one day protect an island. In that moment, creation begins again, slow, deliberate, eternal. So as you drift into rest, imagine the reef continuing its work beneath the waves, the builders at their endless task, crafting beauty molecule by molecule. Picture the colors glowing softly, the light dancing between coral towers, the gentle hum of life in balance. The ocean is building even as you sleep. Each heartbeat of the reef a promise that from patience comes wonder, and from wonder, permanence. The architects of the reef remind us that strength need not roar. It can whisper, it can glow, and it can grow one soft breath at a time, in the stillness beneath the sea. 11 forests below the tide, beneath the shimmer of the waves, where sunlight still bends and filters through the moving blue. There are forests that sway instead of stand. Their trunks are supple, their leaves long and ribboned, their roots braided into sand and stone. They breathe, they anchor, they feed. These are the forests below the tide, the kelp, the seagrasses, and the mangroves, living bridges between the land and the sea. In their quiet, green immensity, they are both lungs and limbs of the ocean, turning sunlight into shelter, carbon into calm. To enter a kelp forest is to enter a dream. The water cools and grows still. The surface light softens into gold. Stipes of giant kelp rise from the seafloor like cathedral columns, stretching upward for 30 or 40 meters until they meet the floating canopy above. Each strand holds hundreds of blades, their edges quivering in the current. Tiny gas-filled bulbs keep them buoyant, suspending this living forest in a perfect equilibrium between gravity and light. When the swell passes overhead, the entire world moves trees, bending and returning in a slow underwater wind. It feels as though the planet itself is breathing, deeply and unhurriedly. Kelp grows faster than almost anything alive, up to 0.5 meter a day, a rate that turns the underwater world into a living time-lapse. In that constant growth lies its resilience. When storms tear its fronds away, it regrows within weeks. When grazers nibble its blades, new shoots emerge from its holdfasts, the tangled roots that cling to rock. Whole ecosystems depend on its generosity. Fish weave through its pillars. Otters wrap themselves in its ribbons to sleep. Urchins graze along its roots. The kelp shades the water, cooling it, softening the light for creatures that thrive in dimness. It slows the waves, protects the coast, and gives more oxygen to the world than its silence suggests. If you listen underwater, you can hear the faint rustle of its blades, a whisper that sounds like rain through leaves. Not far from where kelp ends, in shallower, calmer waters, lie the seagrass meadows. They look like fields of green waving beneath the tide. But they are not algae, they are true plants, with flowers, seeds, roots, and veins. They evolved from terrestrial ancestors millions of years ago and returned to the sea, adapting to salt and current as if remembering an old home. Each blade of seagrass sways with the rhythm of the tide, trapping sediments, calming the water, and creating a sanctuary for life. Seahorses cling to the grass with their curled tails. Juvenile fish hide among the blades, safe from predators. Snails, crabs, and worms live beneath, stirring the soil into soft clouds that drift and resettle. Every movement here seems made for gentleness, as though the sea itself has slowed to match the pace of the grass. Seagrass meadows are the hidden lungs of coastal waters. They absorb vast amounts of carbon dioxide, storing it deep in the sediment where it remains for centuries, a quiet, unseen act of preservation. Scientists call this blue carbon, the carbon kept safe by oceanic vegetation, kelp forests, seagrasses, mangroves. Together, these habitats draw in more carbon per acre than most tropical rainforests. They are the Earth's subtle healers, breathing balance into the air without sound or demand. Yet they live in a fragile harmony. Too much sediment, too much heat, Too much pollution, and their blades wither. When they die, the stored carbon escapes back into the sky, and the balance falters. The ocean breathes less deeply. And then there are the mangroves forests that stand at the edge of the sea, their roots arched like fingers through the mud. They exist between worlds, half land and half ocean, where tides come and go, and the air smells of both salt and soil. Their roots rise above the water in looping patterns, creating a maze where fish, crabs, and young sharks find shelter. Birds nest in their branches, and the mud beneath them teems with life unseen. When the tide floods in, the trees seem to float. When it retreats, their roots are revealed again, like lungs exhaling after a long, slow breath. Mangroves are remarkable engineers. They filter salt from the water through special glands, exhaling it as crystals on their leaves. They build land by trapping sediment in their roots, extending the shoreline inch by inch. They buffer storms, absorbing the energy of waves before it can reach the coast. Their fallen leaves decay slowly, feeding the detritus that nourishes nearby reefs and seagrass beds. And they do all this in silence, in shadow, at the margins where most people seldom look. They are the sentinels of the tide, guardians of the threshold between sea and soil. Each of these forests, kelp, seagrass, mangrove, holds the memory of another. Together, they form a continuum of life that circles the continents like a green ribbon. The kelp cools the open coast. The seagrass softens the shallows. The mangroves hold the edge. They depend on one another's existence. The kelp's detritus feeds the seagrass beds. The seagrass stabilizes sediments that nourish the mangroves, and the mangroves release nutrients that drift back to the sea. Their boundaries are blurred, their cooperation wordless, their harmony complete. In their shade, the sea feels younger. Small fish dart between the roots and blades, flashes of silver against green. Rays slide over the sand like slow shadows. The water is warmer, gentler, full of the hum of life going about its business, feeding, resting, moving with the current. The forests below the tide do not sleep, but they rest in rhythm. When the tide retreats, some leaves remain above water, glistening. When it returns, the water resumes its lullaby, flowing through every branch and blade, bringing oxygen and taking carbon, carrying seeds, carrying life. There are moments, swimming through such a place, when the boundary between yourself and the sea dissolves. You feel the current tug gently at your body, and the movement feels familiar, like breath, like heartbeat. The blades of seagrass brush your arms. The shafts of sunlight flicker through the kelp canopy. Tiny bubbles rise from unseen sources, catching the light as they go. Everything moves in slow choreography, each motion balanced by another. The forest accepts your presence without question. It knows you are made of the same elements: salt, water, carbon, air. In these submerged forests, time behaves differently. The hours stretch and fold like the tide itself. You could drift among kelp for a moment or a lifetime. The experience would feel the same. The sense of scale fades. A single leaf seems endless. A single fish becomes a constellation. The forest teaches you how to be still without stopping, how to move without disturbing. It is the ocean's meditation, the soundless repetition of life continuing. Yet, like all delicate wonders, these forests are at risk. Rising temperatures, changing salinity, coastal development, all chip away at their edges. Mangroves are cleared for space. Seagrasses smothered by runoff. Kelp thinned by heat and hungry urchins. The forests that protect the world need protection themselves. Still, they endure where they can, adapting as they always have. A single seed from a mangrove can float for months, traveling miles before finding a new shore to root upon. A fragment of kelp can anchor itself and grow again. Life in these waters is endlessly inventive, always finding ways to begin anew. At night, when the tide is high and the moonlight filters through the water, the underwater forests glow softly. Plankton drift through their leaves, lighting the outlines in faint blue-green. The water moves slower. Here, its energy gentled by the blades and branches that hold it. This is the ocean breathing through its forests, exhaling oxygen, inhaling peace. It is a world both alien and familiar, a reminder that what lies beneath the surface is not silence, but song. So as you close your eyes and let your breath lengthen, imagine yourself floating through those green cathedrals, through the kelp that rises like columns, through the meadows of seagrass waving beneath the moon, through the mangrove roots reaching into salt and sky. Each of these forests holds a piece of the world's balance, a quiet promise of renewal. They remind us that life thrives not through dominance but through connection, that even underwater, even unseen, the world is growing, breathing, and holding its gentle, steady course. 12 giants passing quietly, far out on the open water, where the sea stretches unbroken in every direction and the horizon softens into haze. There are moments when the surface stirs, a slow rising curve of shadow, then a fountain of breath. The sound comes first, a hollow exhale that cuts through the silence of morning like a sigh too vast to belong to any single creature. Then the back appears, slick and dark, arcing with the grace of something older than time, a whale, a moving mountain made of breath and patience. The ocean's oldest travelers, the giants that pass quietly through a world large enough to hold them, yet fragile enough to need their calm. To watch a whale is to witness the sea thinking aloud. They are its memory and its music, its story made flesh. Their migrations are longer than continents, their songs deeper than any human measure of voice. They move not in haste, but in purpose, crossing entire hemispheres, in arcs that follow temperature, moonlight, and food. Some travel from the poles to the tropics each year, from icy feeding grounds to the warmth of birthing bays, guided not by map or compass, but by instinct older than language. Their paths are rivers of motion, carved into the ocean itself, invisible but enduring, used and remembered across generations. Each whale is a paradox of scale and gentleness. The blue whale, largest creature ever known, can reach the length of 3 buses and weigh more than a small town's worth of cars. Yet it feeds on krill, tiny, shrimp-like beings, filtered through baleen plates in slow, rhythmic gulps. Its heart is the size of a piano, beating once every 10 seconds, pushing through a body that moves with the deliberation of a drifting continent. Its song, pitched below the range of human hearing, travels for thousands of miles, a pulse of sound that circles the globe, overlapping with the voices of others in the deep. Somewhere beneath the waves, these songs cross and blend, forming symphonies we will never hear in full. To the whales, sound is everything. The ocean is dark. Beyond the first few hundred meters, light fades, but sound endures. They navigate by listening, by two, sending low notes that echo off mountains, seafloors, and unseen coastlines. A whale knows the shape of its world through resonance. Each click and call paints an image of the sea around it, a sonic map built in patience. Some whales sing alone, others harmonize in pods, their songs complex and evolving, changing slightly each season, as though composing in real time. Scientists have recorded these shifts, melodies that move eastward across oceans, spreading from one population to another, as if whales were sharing not only space, but culture. The intimacy between whales is something beyond words. A mother and her calf move together as one body, the calf pressed close beneath her fin, learning the ocean's language through touch and rhythm. In the quiet waters of tropical bays, where whales give birth, you can sometimes see them resting at the surface, side by side, breathing in unison. Each exhale releases a plume of mist that catches the sunlight, turning into a brief rainbow, before falling back to the sea. The air smells of salt and life and time. When the calf dives, it follows its mother's shape, echoing her every motion. The bond is as old as the species, written into their movements like music into a score. Different whales carry different songs. The humpback's voice rises and falls in long, haunting verses, its structure both mathematical and emotional, like a poem written in sound. Orcas speak in dialects, each pod with its own vocabulary, passed down through mothers and grandmothers. Sperm whales communicate in coded clicks, called codas, rhythmic bursts that identify family and intent. Within these sounds lie the stories of the deep. Warnings, greetings, courtship, memory. Some of these voices can be heard hundreds of miles away, traveling through water denser and more loyal to sound than air. The ocean is, in essence, a great ear listening to itself, filled with the vibrations of life. To share the sea with such beings is to feel the scale of humility. A whale's passing does not disturb the water so much as rearrange it. When it dives, it does so with the solemnity of a planet turning on its axis, slow, silent, inevitable. The flukes lift high, their undersides pale and patterned, then slip beneath the surface, leaving only a circle of smooth water behind a footprint, they call it, though it fades as quickly as a sigh. The calm that follows feels sacred, as though the ocean itself were bowing in acknowledgement. Once, the sea held many more of these giants. They roamed every ocean in abundance, shaping ecosystems with their feeding and migrations. Their dung fertilized plankton blooms. Their deaths fed entire communities on the seafloor. Even their movements stirred nutrients from depth to surface, connecting the layers of the ocean like veins. When their numbers dwindled under human pursuit, the balance of the sea shifted. The ocean's great lungs lost part of their rhythm. To think of that loss is to feel a silence larger than any sound. Yet the whales have endured. Protected now in many waters, they return each year in greater numbers. Their songs are growing louder again, their migrations once more visible from shore. In Alaska, humpbacks breach against the low northern sun. In the South Pacific, mothers nurse calves among coral lagoons. In Antarctica, fin whales slice through waters once emptied by hunting. They remind us that recovery is not only possible, but ongoing, that life, when given time and space, knows how to return. There are places where you can hear them without seeing them, low moans that travel through the hulls of ships, through the soles of your feet, through the bones of the body. The sound is ancient, almost too deep to identify as voice, yet unmistakably alive. It resonates through the water and into the heart, stirring something buried in our evolutionary memory. Perhaps a recognition that we, too, once moved through a liquid world, cradled by rhythms not unlike theirs. To sleep with thoughts of whales is to imagine the ocean breathing at a scale we can barely comprehend. Each surfacing is an inhale, each dive an exhale. The giants pass quietly, not because they are timid, but because they have no need to hurry. Their presence carries the weight of centuries. A whale's lifetime can span human generations. Its migrations outlast our empires. Yet, they live as though time were not something to be measured, but inhabited. They show us that slowness can be power, that gentleness can hold the world. At night, the ocean is theirs, entirely. The surface glows faintly with plankton, and the sound of distant calls fills the dark pulses, whistles, low tremors that drift for miles. The whales move through these frequencies as we move through dreams, their paths intersecting and diverging in the silence. Somewhere below, a blue whale sings a note so low that it feels like the heartbeat of the planet. Above, The stars mirror the glimmers of light from fish far beneath, sky and sea exchanging their reflections. Between them move the whales, connecting both realms with every breath. When dawn returns, the giants rise once more. They break the surface, breathe, and slip below again, leaving circles of calm water that spread and fade. To witness such a thing is to feel the world align, to know that some forces are too vast for words. The whales need nothing from us, but distance and respect. Yet they give us something immeasurable, a reminder of our smallness and of our belonging. As you drift towards sleep, imagine them moving beneath you, slow, immense, singing to one another through the dark. Their songs weave through the deep, carrying the story of the ocean forward. You might never see them, but their presence endures in every breath of salt air, in every wave that reaches the shore. They are the memory of the sea made visible, the quiet proof that grace can be enormous. In their stillness, the world finds balance, and in their passing, the ocean whispers the same promise it has always kept, that life, no matter how vast or small, is carried endlessly onward by the blue. 13 hunters of silver light. In the open ocean, where there are no trees, no mountains, no boundaries but horizon and depth, life moves through light. Here, the sun filters down into gradients of blue, and every creature has learned to use that light or to hide from it. The sea at midday looks calm from above, a surface stretched in glitter, but beneath that gleam, the world is in constant motion, a choreography of pursuit and evasion, a theater of silver flashes and sudden vanishing. It is the realm of the hunters of silver light, the tunas, the mackerels, the barracudas, the sharks, each one shaped by evolution to move through the water as if it were thought itself swift, smooth, unhesitating. Yet even here, in this realm of muscle and speed, there is a rhythm that mirrors sleep, bursts of motion followed by long, drifting glides, the ocean's own balance between energy and ease. At dawn, when the first light skims across the surface, schools of small fish gather in shifting clouds. From a distance, they look like liquid mirrors, each fish turning its body to catch the light, flashing and fading in unison. Their movement is not random but collective, an ancient intelligence shared through motion. Each fish reacts to the fish beside it in fractions of a second, creating a living fluid that moves as one. To a predator, the school is a riddle, thousands of bodies acting like a single mind, a cloud that evades even as it dances. It is among these clouds that the hunters move. The tuna, built like a bullet of muscle and silver, slices through the water with perfect efficiency. Its body is warm-blooded, an unusual trait for a fish, allowing it to chase prey in colder depths without slowing. Its heart beats with the rhythm of endurance, its muscles tuned for both speed and distance. When a school of tuna turns as one, it is like watching a thought travel through water. They follow the temperature lines of the sea, the invisible thermoclines, where prey gather and travel across entire oceans in a season. Every flick of their tails carries them closer to warmth, to food, to the continuation of their line. The mackerel and the bonito, smaller cousins of the tuna, dart through the upper layers in quick bursts, their scales reflecting light in silver-blue arcs. Barracudas patrol the edges, their long bodies poised in stillness before striking with sudden precision. And then there are the sharks, older than coral, older than mountains, their lineage stretching back 400 million years. Their presence changes the atmosphere of the water itself. Even unseen, they are felt. The sea around them seems to hold its breath. Yet sharks are not the ruthless engines we imagine. They are balance keepers, culling the weak, guiding populations toward health. Their movements are slow until they must not be, conserving energy with the mastery of those who have nothing left to prove. To see a shark up close is to meet geometry perfected. Its body is all smooth edges and purposeful curves, its skin textured with tiny scales that reduce drag and hum faintly against the flow. The eyes, black and steady, hold no malice, only awareness. It moves with the certainty of something that has never doubted its place in the world. When it swims past, the water folds neatly around it, closing behind without a ripple. The silence it leaves feels like respect, the kind of quiet that follows revelation. Predation in the ocean is not cruelty, it is continuation. The act of hunting is inseparable from the act of living. Every movement, from the dart of a sardine to the glide of a shark, is part of a larger pattern of exchange. Energy flows from sun to plankton to fish to predator, a cascade of transformation that feeds the entire world. When a tuna feeds on herring, it consumes the sunlight stored within them. When a shark feeds on tuna, it carries that sunlight deeper into the web of life. Even the smallest plankton blooms feed the giants indirectly, linking every bite, every breath, every movement into one continuous cycle. There are moments in the open sea when all of this converges into spectacle. A bait ball, for instance, a sphere of fish compressed by predators from below and birds from above. From the air, it looks like a dark patch of smoke in the blue. Below, dolphins drive the school upward, while tunas dart through the mass like silver blades. Frigate birds and gannets dive from the sky, piercing the surface in white explosions. The entire ocean seems to be breathing faster, pulsing with urgency and light. And yet, within that frenzy, there is grace. Every life performing its role without hesitation, every motion synchronized by instinct older than time. When night falls, the hunters rest. The ocean darkens not to black, but to a kind of infinite, indigo, and the silver of the day becomes the phosphorescence of the night. Plankton glow with bioluminescence, tracing the outlines of movement in light, the slow sweep of a shark's fin, the dart of a squid, the flicker of a small fish breaking the surface. In this gentle illumination, the sea reveals both the predator and the prey as part of one shared brilliance. There is no villain, no victim, only balance. The hunters drift slowly, conserving energy, their bodies gliding through the dark as if sleepwalking. The ocean, too, rests between tides, its surface calm, its depths whispering, with the faint hum of unseen life. Some hunters, like the sailfish, rise near the surface where moonlight touches their backs. Their long fins spread like banners, catching flashes of light that confuse their prey. Others, like swordfish, dive deep, their bodies glowing faintly with heat, their eyes wide to see in the near dark. The marlins leap above the water, bodies arched, scattering droplets that catch starlight before falling back. For a moment, the air and the sea share the same silver fire. Then the ocean closes over them, and only the rings of their splash remain. To watch these movements from afar is to feel the pulse of the planet. Everything moves in cycles, the pursuit, the chase, the stillness that follows. Even the predators feed in moderation, their hunger balanced by the energy of their world. Nature has no waste, no excess. When a hunt ends, the water calms almost immediately. The light returns to its reflections, the schools regroup, and the sea resumes its breathing. What seemed violent a moment before becomes again serene, as though nothing had happened at all. The ocean, ever forgiving, folds chaos into rhythm. Humans, too, have followed these hunters for centuries, drawn not just by hunger but by fascination. Ancient mariners carved their likeness into bone and shell. Poets wrote of them as spirits of motion. Fishermen studied their migrations, their moods, their habits, learning to read the sea through their paths. Today, satellites track them across oceans, revealing routes that cross entire hemispheres, invisible highways connecting equator to pole. These journeys, spanning thousands of miles, remind us that the ocean has no borders and that the lives within it belong to no one but themselves. When the dawn returns, the hunters rise once more, emerging from shadow to light. The sun breaks across the horizon, scattering coins of brightness across the sea. The small fish shimmer again, and the dance begins anew. You can almost hear the rhythm, the flick of tails, the hum of water displaced, the silent precision of survival. It is not a sound but a feeling, a vibration carried through the body of the ocean and through you as you listen. To dream of the open sea is to drift within that rhythm, to imagine yourself suspended between stillness and speed, between the silver light of the surface and the darker calm below. You are neither hunter nor prey, only witness. The water folds around you, carrying the echo of countless lives moving together, a single organism made of motion and reflection. Somewhere nearby, a tuna turns, a shark glides, a school of fish flares bright and disappears. Above, the sky opens wider, light trembling on the edges of every wave. And as the ocean breathes, so do you, slowly, evenly, your pulse matching the quiet beat of the sea. The hunters pass, the silver light fades, and the blue deepens again into peace. 14. The midnight zone. There comes a point, as you follow the sunlight downward through the water, when the glow fades to a memory. The blues deepen into indigo, then into something close to ink. The warmth of the surface gives way to cold that presses like a long, slow exhale. This is the threshold, the edge of the sunlit world, where daylight surrenders to darkness and a new realm begins. Below this depth lies the midnight zone, a vast wilderness of quiet, pressure, beauty, and strangeness. Where the ocean dreams in its sleep, the descent begins gently. Around 200 meters, the last faint rays of sunlight flicker into dim ribbons. This is the twilight zone, where light still reaches but cannot sustain life in the same way. The water grows cooler, the colors vanish one by one, reds disappearing first, then oranges, then yellows, until only blues remain. You feel the weight of the sea increasing, the pressure multiplying with each meter 10 times the atmosphere at 1,000 meters, 100 times at 10,000. Yet the ocean bears this weight without struggle, its inhabitants made soft and pliant, their bodies crafted for the dark. Below 1,000 meters, the sunlight is gone entirely. The darkness here is not absence, but substance, thick, palpable, eternal. It wraps around you like velvet, complete and without edge. The temperature steadies near freezing, and time seems to slow. This is the midnight zone, stretching from 1 kilometer down to nearly 4. It is a place of compression and adaptation, of life reimagined to fit the impossible. The creatures here do not simply survive darkness, they use it, shape it, speak through it. If you could hover here, suspended in the stillness, your eyes would slowly begin to adjust, though there is little to see. Then, one by one, the lights appear. A drifting jellyfish pulses with a faint blue glow, a ribbon of living light. A small fish flashes twice and then fades. Tiny specks drift upward like embers, each one a creature carrying its own lantern. The darkness, you realize, is alive with light not from the sun, but from within. Nearly 90% of deep-sea species make their own bioluminescence. It is a communication of necessity, to lure prey, to find a mate, to disguise oneself in mimicry of starlight. In this world without dawn or dusk, light is not decoration, it is language. The anglerfish embodies this language perfectly. Its body is compact and shadow-colored, invisible until it decides not to be. From its forehead extends a filament tipped with a glowing lure, a small sphere of bioluminescent bacteria. It dangles this light before its mouth, swaying gently in the current. when a curious fish approaches, mistaking the glow for food. The anglerfish opens its jaws wide, silent, infinite, and the darkness closes again. Nature, in its patience, creates elegance, even in its most fearsome designs. The anglerfish is not cruel, it is simply precise. Nearby, other hunters move through the void. The dragonfish, long and sinuous, carries rows of photophores along its sides, glowing in soft red light, a color invisible to most deep-sea creatures. To them, the dragonfish is invisible. To itself, it sees everything. Its teeth are transparent, its body iridescent in the right light, its eyes adapted to catch the faintest glimmer. It is both shadow and predator, a being perfectly attuned to the narrow frequencies of existence. Here, in the deep, survival belongs not to the strongest, but to the most efficient. Between the larger hunters drift countless tiny forms, copepods, amphipods, larval fish, and jelly-like creatures called salps, forming chains that stretch for meters. They feed on the slow rain of organic matter falling from the surface. The marine snow. This snow, made of tiny flakes of detritus, dead plankton, fecal pellets, microscopic debris, drifts downward continuously, an eternal snowfall in the dark. It nourishes everything below, linking the surface sunlight to the abyss in a quiet economy of loss and renewal. Every flake carries with it the memory of light, the echo of photosynthesis transformed into sustenance for the unseen. If you watch the snow long enough, you begin to see patterns in its descent. Some flakes spiral, some drift straight, some catch on invisible threads. And then you notice something else, a movement that is not falling but rising from the deep. Creatures ascend toward the surface, drawn by instinct and hunger. Each night, billions of them rise in the largest migration on Earth, moving upward to feed under cover of darkness, then returning by dawn to the safety of depth. This daily breathing of the sea, up by night, down by day, happens everywhere, always, in silence. It is a heartbeat measured in vertical miles, connecting the surface to the abyss. In this darkness, pressure is not enemy but environment. The bodies that live here are soft, their bones reduced, their flesh filled with oil and gelatin. Many are translucent, their shapes mutable, their outlines blurring with water. Their eyes are enormous, their senses tuned not to sight, but to vibration and chemical trace. Some emit flashes in response to sound. Others use faint electric fields to navigate. Every adaptation here is a solution to the same equation: how to exist when the world presses from every direction and light is an afterthought. And yet, the midnight zone is not empty. It is, in its way, the largest habitat on the planet, containing more life by volume than any forest or desert. But it is life unseen, delicate, drifting, and ephemeral. For every glowing jelly or toothy fish, there are thousands of microscopic forms, their lives measured in days, their contribution in continuity. The deep does not rush, it sustains. Its inhabitants have evolved to live slowly, to waste nothing, to move only when necessary. In their patience lies the ocean's wisdom. Explorers who descend into this realm describe a sense of stillness unlike anything on the surface. The absence of light and sound distills perception to the essentials. The hiss of one's breath, the faint creak of pressure on steel, the awareness of distance beyond comprehension. Down here, human noise feels out of place. Machines hum briefly and fade, their lights swallowed almost immediately. The ocean reclaims its darkness, unbothered, undisturbed. It has been dark for millions of years and will remain so for millions more. Time here is not linear but circular, the same currents turning endlessly, the same creatures rising and falling in perpetual rhythm. When a whale dies and its body sinks, it becomes a feast for this world. A single carcass may feed an entire ecosystem for decades. Worms, crabs, and bacteria gather in succession, breaking down the body layer by layer, releasing energy back into the deep. Even in death, life continues. Nothing is lost. Everything transforms. The Midnight Zone is a study in such transformation, light into chemistry, pressure into form, decay into nourishment. There is beauty here, though it asks the eyes to learn a new kind of seeing. It is not the beauty of color or brightness, but of endurance, of persistence without audience, a jelly's slow pulse, a fish's bioluminescent trail, the gentle snowfall of detritus, all of it quiet, necessary, infinite. The deep ocean does not seek attention. It exists in perfect self-containment. It reminds us that the world does not require witness to be extraordinary. If you were to fall asleep here, surrounded by the dark, you would not dream of emptiness, but of connection. You would feel the weight of the sea above you, not as burden, but as comfort, 1,000 meters of water holding you gently, evenly, without distinction. You would hear the faint crackle of distant life, the soft murmur of currents. Somewhere far below, vents release mineral-rich water, feeding organisms that live on heat instead of sunlight. Even in the most remote corners of this world, creation continues. The Midnight Zone is the ocean's quiet heart, beating unseen, carrying the world's oldest rhythms. Above it, the surface glitters, storms pass, tides turn. But down here, nothing changes and everything continues. When you return to the surface, blinking into sunlight, you carry with you a trace of that stillness, the memory of darkness that does not frighten but soothes, that reminds you how full the quiet can be. The deep sea is not a place of endings, but of beginnings disguised as silence. It is the ocean asleep and awake at once, dreaming its endless blue dream beneath the weight of stars. 15. The volcanoes beneath the waves. Beneath the calm surfaces of the seas, far below the reach of sunlight and storm, there are mountains that breathe fire. Their peaks never pierce the air, yet they shape the world as surely as the winds above. These are the submarine volcanoes, the hidden architects of continents, the slow builders of islands, the keepers of the planet's restless heat. They lie along the edges of tectonic plates, where the earth opens its seams and molten rock seeps upward in glowing threads. Though unseen, they form the longest mountain range on the planet, the mid-ocean ridges stretching more than 60,000 kilometers around the globe, circling it like a quiet heartbeat of stone and flame. To imagine one of these volcanoes is to imagine creation in its purest form. Deep beneath the pressure of 4 kilometers of seawater, the Earth's crust cracks and pulls apart. From the fissures, magma rises, molten and red, meeting the ocean's crushing cold in an instant of violent equilibrium. The lava cools and hardens, forming new seafloor, new landscape, new memory. Each eruption may last minutes or years. Each flow of basalt adds a layer to the planet's evolving skin. The process is continuous and unhurried. The ocean floor is never still. It is a scroll forever being written upon by heat and water. The world above may never notice these eruptions. There are no clouds of ash, no roaring plumes. The sound is muffled by the weight of water, the light swallowed within meters. Yet, even in this hidden silence, the volcanoes speak not in firelight but in chemistry. As seawater seeps into cracks near the vents, it heats and reacts with minerals, emerging again as superheated fluid laden with metals. When this water meets the near-freezing sea, it precipitates into smoke-like clouds that pour from the seafloor, billowing upward in ghostly towers. These are hydrothermal vents, the black smokers and white smokers, named for the color of the minerals they release. They are chimneys of creation, exhaling the planet's interior into the ocean's heart. Around these vents, life gathers in forms once thought impossible. In the 1970 seconds, when scientists first discovered vent ecosystems, they found a world thriving in total darkness, fueled not by sunlight, but by the chemistry of the Earth itself. Here, bacteria use hydrogen sulfide, the gas of volcanoes, to produce energy, a process called chemosynthesis. These bacteria are the foundation of a food web unlike any other, one that turns the planet's heat into sustenance. Around them, tube worms grow taller than a human, their red plumes waving in the mineral-rich flow. Crabs, shrimp, and fish cluster near the warmth, feeding on the bacterial mats or each other. Life glows faintly in the darkness, colored by the minerals that seep from the vents: copper, blues, iron, reds, sulfur, yellows. It is a world both alien and utterly connected to ours. To stand, or rather, to float near one of these vents in the deep is to witness the planet alive at its core. The temperature can shift from freezing to boiling in a few centimeters. The water shimmers with metallic particles, glinting like stars in a black sky. The pressure is immense, the silence complete except for the faint hiss of rising bubbles. It feels both dangerous and sacred, like watching a heartbeat too vast to comprehend. Every pulse of heat that leaves the vent is part of a global cycle, releasing the energy that drives plate tectonics, that shapes mountains, that creates the very crust beneath our feet. Some volcanoes erupt more dramatically, forming new islands in sudden, fiery birth. Off the coasts of Iceland, Tonga, and the Azores, eruptions have pushed molten rock above the surface, creating land where none existed before. These islands often last only briefly, worn away by waves, but some endure, growing layer by layer into archipelagos. The Hawaiian Islands themselves are the work of such submarine volcanoes, born from a hotspot deep in the Earth's mantle. Each island marks a moment in time, a record of the Pacific Plate's slow drift over that persistent flame. Even now, a new island is forming to the southeast of Hawaii, its summit still hundreds of meters below the waves. In a few tens of thousands of years, it will rise into air, green with life. Creation, in the ocean's language, is patient. Where volcanoes lie dormant, their shapes soften under sediment, becoming reefs or seamounts. These underwater mountains create upwellings of current, bringing nutrients from the deep to the surface. Around their slopes, plankton gather, drawing fish, which in turn draw whales and sharks. The seamount becomes a sanctuary, a point of stillness in the moving blue. Many species depend on these submerged mountains for feeding or breeding, navigating to them as if guided by memory. To the ocean, even extinct volcanoes remain alive, their influence stretching through ecosystems and centuries. The chemistry of the volcanic world also plays a quiet role in maintaining balance. The minerals released by hydrothermal vents, iron, manganese, zinc, drift upward and spread across vast distances, fertilizing the ocean's surface layers. There, they feed plankton blooms that draw carbon from the atmosphere, linking the deep Earth to the global climate. In this way, volcanoes beneath the waves breathe with the planet, exhaling minerals that become food, that become air, that become the next wave of life. The creatures that dwell in these fiery realms are born of resilience. The tube worms, though rooted in scalding currents, host symbiotic bacteria within their bodies, transforming poison into nourishment. The shrimp around certain vents have no eyes, but possess heat-sensitive organs on their backs, allowing them to sense the vent's warmth. Some clams grow shells laced with metal, their bodies adapted to the chemistry of smoke and stone. Even the bacteria themselves show a kind of immortality, living where nothing else could, their DNA ancient and unbroken, whispering the first instructions of life. Scientists believe that such places may resemble the cradle from which all life once arose, not in the sunlight, but in the dark, near the warmth of the Earth's heart. To think of life beginning here is to feel a kind of awe beyond measure. In this darkness, surrounded by heat and metal, the first cells might have formed, taking in energy from the vent fluids, dividing, evolving, enduring. The ocean, it seems, remembers its origins in every breath of steam. Each volcano, each vent, is a link to that beginning, a reminder that life's story is written not only in light, but in heat, not only in the sky, but in the depths. As you imagine drifting above one of these hidden volcanoes, picture the sea floor glowing faintly with red fissures, like veins beneath the skin of the earth. The water vibrates softly, a low hum carried through miles of stone and salt. You can feel the warmth against the coldness of the abyss, a contradiction that somehow holds true. Around you, creatures move slowly, luminous and unbothered by extremes. It is not a place of chaos, but of balance, heat and cold, life and pressure, creation and rest. The volcanoes beneath the waves are reminders that even in silence, the earth is alive. They shape the sea from below as the wind shapes it from above. They remind us that destruction and creation are the same motion viewed from different distances. And though their fire never touches the air, its echo reaches us in the rocks we walk upon, in the breath we take, in the life that began and still thrives in their warmth. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine the Earth's deep heart still glowing far below, its heat traveling upward through water and time. Picture that fire meeting the cold of the ocean and turning into life, again and again. Beneath the waves, the planet dreams in lava, and the ocean listens. Together they form the oldest duet, stone and water, heat and calm, endlessly shaping each other in silence. Even now, in the dark, the world is still being born. 16. The sound of the sea. If you stand on a quiet shore with your eyes closed, the ocean begins to speak in layers. First comes the surface murmur waves meeting sand, a rhythm that feels as old as breathing. Beneath that, the deeper pulse of swells rolling in from faraway storms, their energy crossing entire oceans before breaking here, under your feet. And lower still, so deep you do not so much hear it as feel it, is the hum of the earth itself, the infrasonic resonance of water pressing against world, a sound that never ends. The sea is not silent. It is a cathedral of constant tone, filled with the whispers and songs of everything it holds. Underwater, sound behaves differently than in air. It travels nearly 5 times faster, carried not by vibration of gas, but by the density of liquid. It moves farther, cleaner, unbroken by wind or dust. In this way, the ocean becomes an enormous instrument, its notes bouncing from seafloor to surface, from ice edge to coral reef. The deep water carries low frequencies, the long, rolling sounds that can circle the globe. Higher tones, made by smaller creatures, fade more quickly but fill the local space with texture. Every moment, the ocean's soundscape is shifting, a living symphony of weather, life, and geology. At the surface, waves speak first. Each rise and collapse is a soft percussion, the hiss of foam dissolving into sand, the sigh of bubbles releasing air. These sounds are the lullaby of coasts, the constant reminder of the tide's endless dialogue. But beyond the breakers, the sea's voice deepens. Rain falling on open water makes a sound like distant applause. Ice cracking in polar seas echoes like slow thunder. The rumble of distant storms travels below the surface as faint tremors, the ocean carrying the memory of lightning long after the clouds have passed. Even earthquakes beneath the seafloor send ripples of sound that move faster than the waves themselves, announcing their presence across continents. To the creatures who live within it, sound is not background but life. In the deep, where light cannot reach, The only way to see is through listening. Whales and dolphins, squid and fish, even shrimp and snails, all use sound to navigate, to feed, to communicate. For them, the ocean is a medium of messages, a landscape drawn in echoes. A humpback whale's song can travel hundreds of miles, a complex sequence of moans and whistles that change with the seasons. Each population has its own dialect, its own melodies passed between generations. Their songs shift over years, evolving like human music, repeating phrases and motifs that seem to carry memory. The sea holds these songs, as it holds the currents moving them slowly, endlessly, across the blue. In the shallows, coral reefs hum with a softer but no less intricate music. The crackle of snapping shrimp, created when they snap their claws and create bubbles of collapsing energy, fills the water with a steady hiss. It is the sound of life at work, fish feeding, crustaceans building, tiny creatures communicating in invisible languages. Young fish, far from home, can follow this sound to find their way back to reefs where they were born. Even larvae drift toward the frequencies of familiar places. The reef's voice becomes a beacon of belonging, a heartbeat of habitat. Deeper down, the orchestra changes. The groans of shifting ice shelves, the distant roll of submarine landslides, the soft clicks of squids hunting in the dark, each sound moves through the blackness like a signal from another world. When hydrothermal vents release their heated water, they create faint crackles, a bubbling whisper that mixes with the lower rumble of volcanic vibrations. These tones may travel for hundreds of miles before dissolving into the background hum of the abyss. There is no silence in the deep, only softness, a music that never quite stops, only slows. Whales are the great composers of this underwater symphony. The low-frequency notes of blue and fin whales can travel across entire oceans, wrapping the planet in sound. These calls can be felt more than heard, resonating in the body like the vibration of distant thunder. Sperm whales click in powerful bursts, their sonar mapping the world around them in three-dimensional detail. Orcas speak in families of tone and pulse, their voices full of intention. Scientists have recorded patterns that seem to hold information coordination, identification, perhaps even emotion. The ocean is thick with these conversations, most of them beyond our hearing. To swim through such a space is to pass through 1,000 overlapping dialogues, all ancient, all essential. Yet, as human presence grows, the ocean's natural soundscape has begun to change. The low hum of ships, the pounding of industrial engines, the echo of seismic testing, all of these add layers of noise that blur the older symphony. Whales have been heard shifting the frequencies of their songs to rise above the static. Dolphins must call louder to reach one another. The sea's quiet language is being drowned by machinery. Still, the original sounds persist beneath, patient and enduring, like melodies that can never be fully erased. When storms calm, when ships pass, the ocean's true voice returns slow, patient, infinite. There are places where the sound of the sea feels almost visible. In Antarctic waters, the grinding of icebergs creates a deep, hollow song, a chorus of creaks and groans, like the breathing of glaciers. In tropical lagoons, waves whisper through coral caverns, their echoes shimmering in high tones. In the deep Pacific, where trenches drop 7 miles down, pressure transforms sound into vibration. There, the ocean hums in frequencies too low for human ears, a global resonance, the Earth's own heartbeat, transmitted through saltwater. Scientists have named this the sound of the Earth's hum, a perpetual murmur that vibrates through ocean and rock alike, connecting everything from seafloor to sky. If you were to listen to the ocean not with ears but with your whole body, you would hear patterns within patterns. The rhythm of waves matches the rhythm of your breath. The pulse of distant swells mirrors the beat of your heart. The deeper hum aligns with your sleeping mind. Slow, steady, grounding. Perhaps this is why humans have always been soothed by the sound of the sea. It is not simply pleasant, it is familiar. We were formed in water, our first heartbeat heard through liquid. The sea's cadence calls us back to that memory, reminding us of the rhythm we once shared. There are moments, even on land, when that rhythm returns, the sound of wind through trees, the hush of rain against windows, the low roar of wind between hills. All are echoes of the ocean's voice, reminders that we live on a planet shaped by waves. Every sound, even silence, carries some trace of the sea. To drift in the ocean at night, surrounded by these sounds, is to feel part of something vast and alive. You would hear the clicking of distant dolphins, the creak of waves against your body, the pulse of your own breath blending into the rhythm of the water. Above, the stars would shine, silent but mirrored by the bioluminescent flickers below. Between those two infinities, sky and sea, you would exist in perfect balance, a small vibration within a larger harmony. The sea would hold you, and in that holding you would remember what it means to listen without expectation. The sound of the sea is the sound of continuity, water against water, pressure against stone, wind meeting wave. It does not demand attention, it offers stillness. When we listen, truly listen, we hear not only the sea, but the shape of our own quiet inside it. The same patterns that move through tides move through us, the rise, the pause, the return. So as you close your eyes tonight, imagine that sound surrounding you. The waves move closer, then retreat. A slow, distant hum lingers just beneath thought. You are hearing the oldest voice on earth, the one that has spoken since before language, before memory, before light. The sound of the sea is the sound of existence itself, calm, cyclical, endless. It carries through the deep, through the air, through your heart, and long after all storms have passed, it will continue, murmuring softly to the sleeping world, a lullaby of salt and motion that never truly stops. 17. The ice-bound oceans. There are places where the sea forgets its color, where blue turns to white, and motion slows until it resembles stillness. At the poles, the ocean sleeps beneath a lid of ice, its breath thin but steady, its silence older than memory. Here the water wears a crown of frost, and time seems to move differently, not in hours or tides, but in slow pulses of freeze and thaw, melt and return. They are alive in their quiet, filled with subtle light, soundless movement, and creatures shaped by patience. To visit them, even in imagination, is to stand at the edge of the world's dreaming. In the Arctic and Antarctic, water and air share a delicate boundary. In winter, the sea hardens, forming sheets of ice that stretch for miles, an ever-shifting plain of blue-white, ridged and fractured, glowing softly beneath low suns. In summer, the ice loosens and drifts, breaking into flows that turn lazily under endless daylight. Beneath these floating islands, life continues in shadowed abundance. The underside of the ice is a strange inverted meadow, covered in films of algae and bacteria, rich with color unseen from above. From those tiny beginnings, the food web unfolds upward, from microscopic plankton to krill, from krill to fish, from fish to seals, whales, and bears. The cold does not hinder life here, it defines it. In the Arctic, the sea is shallow and ringed by continents. The ice moves in spirals, driven by wind and current, pressing and parting in endless conversation. The sound is constant, the low groan of ice under pressure, the sharp crack of new fractures, the sigh of meltwater flowing into hidden pools. To the creatures beneath, These sounds are a kind of language. Belugas and narwhals navigate by echo, their calls bouncing from the ice above and the sea floor below. The narwhal, with its long spiraled tusk, glides beneath the flows like a myth come to life, using narrow cracks in the ice to breathe. Its world is one of dim, green light and distant echoes, a labyrinth of cold corridors that only the patient can traverse. Farther south, in the Antarctic, the ocean deepens and circles endlessly around the continent. A ring of water unbroken by land. Here the ice expands each winter to cover millions of square kilometers, only to retreat again with the summer sun. The frozen edge of the world is alive with motion. Glaciers carve into the sea in thunderous silence, birthing icebergs the size of cities. They drift slowly northward, melting as they go, releasing ancient air trapped for millennia. Around them, penguins dive and surface, their black and white forms like living brushstrokes against the ice. Beneath the surface, the true abundance unfolds, krill swarming in clouds that stretch for miles, feeding whales that rise in slow arcs to breathe before vanishing again into blue. The water here is unimaginably clear and cold, so cold that it can remain liquid below the freezing point of pure water. Because of its salt, in such cold, every sound carries, every movement resonates. The crack of ice can be felt miles away through bone and breath. To dive beneath that surface is to enter another kind of silence, one not empty but saturated, dense with stillness. The light filters down in green and gold shafts, caught by ice crystals that hang like suspended stars. Even the bubbles from your breath seem reluctant to rise, their ascent slowed by the weight of cold. It is a place that teaches the meaning of stillness, the patience of elements too ancient to rush. Beneath the ice, the ecosystem thrives in ways both fragile and immense. Tiny diatoms bloom in the brief light of polar spring, forming a film that coats the underside of the ice. They are eaten by copepods, which in turn feed krill, small shrimp-like creatures that form the living foundation of the polar sea. Krill are the pulse of these oceans, linking sunlight to giants. They gather in vast schools, their movements synchronized like drifting smoke, their bodies glowing faintly in the dark. Blue whales, the largest animals on Earth, feed on them by the ton, rising through the green gloom with open mouths, filtering water through their baleen in graceful arcs. Each mouthful is a memory of sunlight, transformed into movement, into song. The polar regions are full of contrasts, brightness above, darkness below, silence interrupted by thunder, life thriving beside desolation. Above the ice, bears wander in search of seals, their paws spreading wide to stay atop the frozen surface. Seals rest on floes, their bodies curved against the cold wind, their breath rising in slow white plumes. When danger nears, they slip beneath the ice with effortless grace, vanishing into a world where warmth is found in motion. Every creature here depends on rhythm, the turning of seasons, the return of light, the thickness of ice. The sea and its inhabitants move together in a dance that has remained unchanged for thousands of years. But even these timeless worlds are changing. As the planet warms, the ice retreats earlier each year, thinning, fracturing, revealing more of the sea beneath. The balance of light and shadow shifts. Algae bloom sooner, krill migrate differently, predators follow new paths. In some places, entire species have begun to move poleward, seeking the cold that once defined their lives. The ocean adjusts, but its adjustments ripple outward, touching every current, every cloud, every shore. The icebound oceans, though remote, are the mirrors of our world, reflecting not only sunlight, but consequence. When they change, everything does. Yet, for all its fragility, the frozen sea endures. The ice returns each winter, reshaping itself in new forms. It creaks, it groans, it breathes. Beneath it, the water continues to flow, carrying nutrients from depth to surface, feeding the plankton blooms that color the spring sea. Whales still migrate along invisible lines of temperature and memory. Penguins still gather on the ice to raise their young, their calls echoing across miles of white. The rhythm may shift, but it persists. The ocean has weathered greater changes than this. Its memory is longer than ours, and its patience deeper. To stand at the edge of the polar sea is to feel both insignificance and belonging. The horizon stretches without break, the light low and unending. The air tastes of salt and cold iron. When the wind pauses, the silence is so complete it feels like the earth holding its breath. Then a crack echoes across the ice, a reminder that nothing is truly still. Even in freezing, the world moves. If you could drift beneath the ice, you would see its beauty from within the blue light filtering down like music made visible. The slow bloom of algae tracing green veins through white. You might pass a seal turning lazily in the water, its shape mirrored by the ice above. You might see the faint shimmer of krill in the distance, a living constellation. And as you floated there, wrapped in cold and quiet, you would understand that this frozen world is not an ending but a pause, the ocean dreaming between breaths. When night comes to the poles, it lasts for months. The sun disappears, and the stars return to rule the sky. The aurora drapes its colors over the darkness, shimmering green and violet, reflections of the same energy that moves within the earth itself. The sea below glows faintly with the light of plankton, mirroring the sky above. In that shared radiance, the world feels whole again, water and air, light and shadow, all joined in quiet balance. So tonight, as you listen to the soft rhythm of your own breath, imagine that it matches the slow breathing of the polar sea. Inhale the freeze, the stillness, the quiet weight of ice. Exhale the melt, the flow, the movement beneath. Even at the ends of the earth, the ocean lives and dreams. The icebound waters hold the memory of all beginnings, all endings, and the soft promise that every silence hides a pulse. 18 tides of the moon. Each night, when the moon rises over the horizon, its light seems to draw the ocean toward it. The waves lean upward in silent obedience, swelling and falling in rhythm with a force too distant to see. The tide is not merely water in motion. It is the breath of the world, drawn by the gravity of the heavens. Every coast, every inlet, every hidden cove feels this pull. It is the oldest dance between earth and sky, the quiet conversation between stone, water, and moonlight that has shaped our planet since its beginning. Long before there were clocks or calendars, there were tides. Ancient people watched them to tell time, to measure distance, to know when to plant or harvest, when to fish or set sail. The sea has always been the first clock, its hands the ebb and flow of waves, its pendulum the moon. Each rise of water is a reminder that gravity is not a static force but a gentle persuasion, the invisible thread that ties everything together. The moon pulls on the ocean, and the ocean answers. In turn, the Earth tugs back, slowing the moon's orbit by fractions, imperceptibly altering the length of our days. Every tide is part of this exchange, an eternal trade between motion and rest. From space, the Earth's oceans bulge subtly in two directions, one facing the moon, drawn toward it, and one opposite, pulled outward by inertia. As the planet spins beneath these bulges, coastlines pass through the zones of high and low water. On most shores, this happens twice a day, a slow breathing of the sea that never misses a step. High tide, when the water climbs the beach and fills the estuaries. Low tide, when it retreats, leaving glistening sand and rock pools, alive with hidden worlds. Each transition brings change, a rhythm felt not only by the water, but by every creature that depends upon it. Along the shore, life moves to the moon's command. Barnacles close tight against the air, holding their small breath until the sea returns. Mussels and anemones cling to rock, waiting for the next wave to bring food. Crabs scuttle between pools, quicksilver and cautious. Seaweeds lie draped across stones like silk, shimmering with salt. When the tide comes in, everything awakens. Fish glide through the returning water. Sand eels emerge. Shells open. Feeding begins. The boundary between land and sea blurs, then disappears entirely. The shore becomes ocean again, and the moon's pull is complete. For those who live near the sea, this rhythm becomes part of daily life. Fishermen time their work to the tide, launching their boats when the water is high enough to lift them. Migratory birds follow the retreating waterlines, feeding in the exposed mudflats. Even human hearts seem to recognize the pattern, finding comfort in its reliability. There is something deeply reassuring in its constancy, the fact that no matter what happens on land, the ocean will rise and fall, unbroken. In certain places, the tides perform their dance with extraordinary drama. In Canada's Bay of Fundy, the difference between high and low water can exceed 16 meters, enough to reveal entire cliffs at ebb and cover them completely at flood. Twice each day, the bay fills and empties with more water than all the rivers on Earth combined. The power of that movement shapes the land itself, carving rock, shifting sediment, creating channels where none existed before. Yet for all its strength, the motion remains graceful. The water flows as if breathing in slow meditation, as if it knows precisely how far to go and when to return. In quieter coves and lagoons, the tide behaves differently, subtle, almost shy. There, it may rise only a few centimeters, yet its influence still reaches deep. It stirs nutrients in the water, feeds seagrass meadows, and refreshes coral reefs. In the tropics, corals release their eggs and sperm in synchrony with the lunar cycle, their spawning timed to the moon's fullness and the gentlest tides. The ocean listens to the heavens more closely than we ever could, responding to patterns that stretch across light years. Even deep in the abyss, the moon's pull is felt. Though the surface waves never reach those depths, the tidal currents flow through the darkness, moving water masses, carrying food, shaping the lives of the creatures below. It is the moon's unseen hand guiding even the farthest corners of the sea. Hydrothermal vents pulse slightly with tidal pressure, releasing bursts of mineral-rich water in rhythm with the lunar cycle. Giant squid rise and fall in time with the changing tides above, their movements coordinated by forces they cannot see. The ocean, in every layer, listens. There is poetry in this connection, that the same moon lighting our skies at night is also stirring entire seas. When you watch the tide slide up the shore, you are seeing the moon's gravity made visible. The reflection you glimpse in a tide pool is not just light, but influence a whisper across 384,000 kilometers of space. It is as though the moon were reaching down to touch the earth, and the earth were answering in waves. Every ripple, every shimmer of water, every slow curl of foam is part of that cosmic dialogue. Humans, though we live mostly on land, still feel this rhythm within us. Our bodies, like the sea, are mostly water. Our cells respond subtly to lunar cycles, our sleep patterns shifting with the waxing and waning light. Fishermen once spoke of moon tides of the mind, when dreams grew longer, thoughts more fluid. Perhaps it is not superstition but remembrance, a cellular echo of the time when life itself was bound entirely to the tides, when the pull of the moon was the difference between stillness and motion, between hunger and abundance. At night, when the tide retreats and the moon's reflection trembles across wet sand, the world feels balanced. The air cools, the waves soften, and the sound of the water becomes an ancient song, a rhythm so old that even in silence you can almost hear it. The sea exhales, revealing its secret flaws, shells gleaming in moonlight, tiny fish trapped in pools, patterns drawn by receding foam. It is in these moments that the boundary between the human and the cosmic seems to fade. The tide is both ocean and heartbeat, both motion and memory. And when the tide turns, as it always does, it begins to rise again without hesitation. The first trickle of water returns to the shore, filling footprints, covering stones. The ocean breathes in. The stars shimmer on the rippled surface, and the moon's light deepens, caught in motion. The waves come faster now, each one erasing the last mark left by air and sand. Soon, the shore disappears again beneath water, renewed. In this way, the tide teaches a kind of faith, the trust that even after retreat comes return, that every loss carries its own renewal. It is the pulse that keeps the planet alive, the reminder that change is not chaos, but continuity. To sleep by the sea is to feel this lesson in your bones. Each distant wave carries the rhythm of the moon, the hum of gravity, the comfort of return. As you rest tonight, imagine the tide flowing in the darkness beyond your window, silent, steady, rising to the pull of the moon. Picture it climbing over stones, smoothing sand, carrying small shells toward the horizon. Above it, the moon glows softly, suspended in its endless orbit, guiding the sea as gently as a mother guiding her child's breath. The ocean answers with movement, with patience, with song. Together they form the oldest duet, water and moon, pull and release, silence and motion, an eternal tide that never stops, not even when the world sleeps. 19. The ocean's memory. The sea remembers everything. It holds the story of the earth within its restless body, the warmth of vanished suns, the dust of ancient stars, the traces of all who have ever crossed its surface. Every current, every wave, every slow-moving swirl beneath the surface carries fragments of memory, whispered forward through time. The ocean does not forget. It moves with purpose, even when that purpose appears as drift. It records in salt and temperature what we record in words and stone. It remembers in silence, patiently. When rain falls into the sea, it does not disappear. It joins a cycle that may take centuries to complete, sinking, traveling, rising again. The water that touches a shoreline tonight may once have brushed the hull of an ancient ship or cooled the scales of a dinosaur's skin. The molecules within it have changed owners countless times, moving through clouds and rivers, through lungs and leaves, returning always to the same blue reservoir. The ocean carries this record not as nostalgia, but as continuity. It does not separate the past from the present. To it, all time is one slow circulation. Scientists can read this memory through chemistry. In the depths of ice cores and sediment layers, the sea has left its signature tiny fossils of plankton, crystals of salt, isotopes of oxygen that mark the warmth or chill of forgotten climates. Each layer is a page in the diary of the world, a record of storms, of droughts, of shifts so gradual that no single creature could notice them. And yet, here they are, written in microscopic precision. The ocean has always been our historian, speaking in the language of pattern and tide. It remembers the birth of continents, when molten rock met water and hissed into islands. It remembers the first rains that filled the basins, the first living cells that learned to divide in its warmth. The ocean has seen extinction and renewal, glaciation and thaw, silence and song. It has carried icebergs and armies, whales and wooden ships. It remembers the sound of oars on calm water and the hum of engines in the modern age. It knows the shape of every coastline, even those long since drowned beneath its rising waves. In the ocean's memory, nothing is truly lost, only transformed. Currents themselves are rivers of recollection, moving warmth and cold across the planet in steady loops. The Gulf Stream carries heat from the tropics to the far north, where it cools and sinks, beginning the journey again as deep flow. This conveyor of water, the thermohaline circulation, is a memory loop that spans 1,000 years. A single drop of water may travel the entire globe before returning to its starting place. In its path, it gathers traces of every region it passes: the scent of coral, the chill of ice, the minerals of deep volcanic ridges. Each element tells a part of the ocean's ongoing story. In this way, the ocean is the planet's consciousness, not in thought, but in retention. It records without judgment. When rivers bring soil and sediment from the land, the sea absorbs it quietly. When air carries the fine dust of deserts, it settles on the surface, spreading nutrients that feed plankton blooms. When light enters the water, it scatters and fades, yet its energy remains, stored in movement and heat. The sea is both archive and messenger, holding memory and sending it forward in waves that reach every shore. The creatures that live within it also bear its remembrance. Whales follow ancient migration paths known to their ancestors long before charts or maps existed. Salmon return to the exact streams where they were born, guided by chemical traces carried downstream. Sea turtles cross entire oceans to lay eggs on the same beaches that held their mothers. These instincts are not learned but inherited memories written into DNA, passed down through millions of years. The ocean keeps these memories alive, repeating them in cycles so vast they resemble eternity. There are memories within the water that humans have added to, the stories of exploration, of hope, of loss. Sunken ships lie on the seafloor, like chapters of forgotten books, their hulls covered in coral, their cargo slowly dissolving into history. The ocean holds the relics of trade routes and wars, of civilizations that once believed themselves eternal. Amphorae filled with wine, anchors from triremes, the bones of sailors all resting quietly beneath silt, kept safe by the sea's unhurried touch. It is a museum without walls, a cathedral without need for prayer, where time itself drifts like sediment. But the ocean also remembers what we would rather it forget. It holds the warmth of a changing climate, absorbing 90% of the excess heat produced by human industry. It remembers the carbon we have released, storing it in its depths, altering its chemistry. The coral reefs, bleaching and fading, are its notes of warning, the rising tides, its growing restlessness. Yet even this memory is not anger, only record. The sea mirrors what it is given. It reflects the truth of our choices, as it has always done. Still, its capacity for healing remains vast. When pollution stops, waters clear. When overfishing ceases, life returns. The ocean has seen worse disruptions, meteor impacts, volcanic winters, ice ages that locked it under miles of frost, and yet it endures. Its resilience is a kind of forgiveness, an endless willingness to begin again. In every wave that rolls to shore, there is the echo of renewal. The ocean's memory is not stored only in physical matter. It exists in rhythm, in the pulse of tides, the cycle of plankton blooms, the migrations that return each year. To sit beside the water is to feel that rhythm pass through you. The sound of waves is a translation of time into motion, the repetition of beginning and return. Each wave remembers the one before it, just as each heartbeat remembers the last. When you listen closely, the sea's memory becomes your own, a reminder that everything that has ever been is still, in some form, present. The human imagination has always sensed this truth. We speak of memory as depth, of emotion as tide, of thought as current. We call the unconscious mind an ocean, vast and unknowable, where forgotten things drift until they surface again. Perhaps this metaphor exists because it is not metaphor at all. The sea is our mirror, not only of the world's body but of its mind. We came from it, and its memory lives within us. When we dream of water, we are dreaming of origin. If you were to float alone on the open sea, surrounded by nothing but horizon, you might feel the weight of that memory. The water beneath you would have touched every coast, every continent. It would carry the heat of equatorial sun, the chill of polar night, the trace of every river that has ever flowed. To drift, there is to be held by the collective past of the planet. Every molecule that brushes your skin has lived countless lives before this one cloud. Rain, glacier, tear, tide. You are surrounded by remembrance. And when you listen to the sea at night, to its long, low breathing, you are hearing history itself, the slow rotation of the earth written in sound. Each wave that reaches the shore has traveled across miles of open water, gathering whispers of wind, fragments of storm, the sigh of coral and the call of whales. It arrives changed yet familiar, bearing everything that came before. So, as you close your eyes, imagine the ocean as a great, living library. Shelves of waves, volumes of current, each one filled with memory. Feel yourself drifting through those archives, weightless, timeless. You are not separate from them. You are part of the same story, the same circulation. The sea remembers you as it remembers everything. It will carry your breath into its rhythm, your heartbeat into its tide. And long after you are gone, a trace of that rhythm will remain, folded into its eternal recall, another ripple in the vast and endless memory of the sea. 20. The sleeping world beneath. When the surface of the sea lies calm, when the wind quiets and the moon's reflection rests unbroken, it feels as though the ocean has fallen asleep. The waves soften into breathing, the currents slow, and everything above appears still. But beneath that calm lies a world that never stops. A sleeping world, yes, but one that dreams in motion. In the deep, the ocean never truly rests. It only changes its rhythm. It folds itself into layers of quiet, where life continues softly, each creature moving as though in a dream of water. At night, the surface darkens and the sea becomes its own sky. Stars above and bioluminescence below mirror one another, as if the universe has doubled itself. In this half-light, the ocean takes on a different personality. The day's frenzy retreats. The hunters slow their chase. The plankton rise from the depths, and the sea begins its nightly migration. Billions of tiny beings ascend from the dark midwaters to feed. Their ascent, invisible, but vast. The largest movement of life on Earth. From the surface it cannot be seen, yet the water beneath teems with motion. It is as though the planet itself were turning in its sleep, breathing through the lungs of the sea. In this nocturnal calm, the great creatures drift more slowly. Whales sink and rise with deliberate rhythm, conserving energy as they rest in the vertical stillness of the deep. Dolphins form half circles around one another, sleeping with only half their minds while the other half stays awake to surface and breathe. Sharks glide in slow spirals, their bodies carried by currents that do the work of motion for them. Even coral polyps extend their tiny tentacles to feed, catching the plankton that floats like dream dust through the water. The ocean at night is both sleeping and awake, every being resting, yet none completely still. If you could watch from above, you might think nothing moves at all. The moonlight would shimmer faintly on calm water, its silver glow, tracing soft arcs across the waves. But the stillness is deceptive. Beneath the surface, sound continues. The crackle of distant shrimp, the low moan of whales, the faint pop of gas escaping from sand, all blend into a quiet symphony. The ocean hums as it sleeps. Even silence here, is layered with life. The sleeping world beneath is governed by a patience that human life rarely understands. Time here stretches differently. Some creatures live for moments, others for centuries. Certain clams in the deep Arctic grow so slowly that their shells add a new layer of calcium only once a year. In their age lines are written centuries of history, winters of ice, summers of melt, the passage of unseen tides. Corals on ancient seamounts grow like trees of stone, their branches recording the chemistry of ages past. When they die, they remain standing, their skeletons becoming homes for the next generation. The ocean never discards, it repurposes. Even in sleep, it builds. There are places in the sea where this sense of timelessness becomes absolute deep trenches where sunlight has never reached, where the water is motionless, except for the slow fall of marine snow. In those depths, the pace of life is so slow it seems like stillness. Jelly-like creatures drift for years without destination, feeding on what little descends from above. Fish with translucent skin move like ghosts through the dark, their hearts beating perhaps once every few seconds. It is not a world of emptiness, but of economy. Every movement measured, every heartbeat chosen. The deep sea dreams differently, but it dreams all the same. Even the seafloor itself sleeps and wakes. Sediment shifts imperceptibly, stirred by the faintest current. Burrowing worms and starfish leave trails that will soon be covered, erased by new deposits of sand and silt. Volcanic vents pulse in cycles of heat and rest, their plumes rising and falling like exhalations. In every layer, the ocean mirrors the act of breathing, expansion and contraction, creation and pause. Nothing truly stops, but everything slows to the pace of necessity. During these slow hours, light becomes a visitor. Phosphorescent plankton drift like stars across the dark, glowing at the slightest disturbance. The movement of a fin, the touch of a current, even the faint vibration of passing sound all spark trails of blue-green light. Schools of fish passing through become constellations, their bodies shining briefly before fading back into shadow. Sometimes a whale breaches through the surface and re-enters with thunderous grace, scattering glowing spray into the air. For an instant, the sea and the sky exchange their starlight. Then darkness returns, serene as before. To drift within this sleeping sea is to enter a different kind of consciousness. There is no urgency here, no division between day and night, no distinction between waking and dream. Every movement feels suspended between thought and instinct. You might feel the slow roll of a wave pass above, the soft push of a current carrying you somewhere you cannot name. The water is cool, embracing, endless. Your heartbeat slows to match its rhythm. The sea carries you as it carries everything, without judgment, without effort. Somewhere below, the great abyssal plains stretch out in quiet immensity. There are no landmarks, only undulating dunes of silt, each grain older than any city. Strange creatures glide close to the bottom, ghostly eels, transparent shrimp, slow-moving snails of extraordinary color. They leave faint marks that the next current will erase. Even their presence feels temporary, as though they exist only when witnessed, fading back into the dream of the deep once unseen. Above them, faint vibrations ripple downward from faraway waves, the sound of storms, the echoes of whale songs, the deep thrum of tectonic motion. These are the lullabies of the sea, and they never end. The sleeping world beneath also holds the seeds of awakening. In its stillness, new life is constantly forming, larvae carried by invisible currents, eggs suspended between layers of temperature and salt, small beginnings hidden within the calm. When daylight returns and warms the surface, these hidden seeds will rise, feeding the plankton bloom that begins the cycle anew. Even rest here leads to renewal. The ocean's sleep is never idleness. It is preparation for continuation. Above, dawn eventually begins to shimmer, a faint light spreading through the water, painting the upper layers in pale gold. The nocturnal migration reverses. The plankton sink again, the hunters stir, the currents quicken. Life awakens, unhurried but complete. The ocean opens its eyes, yet the calm of night lingers, folded within it like a secret. The stillness has done its work. The sleeping world beneath rises now, refreshed, ready to begin another day of tides and sunlight and endless motion. And when night comes again, as it always will, sea will lower its pulse, dim its surface, and dream once more. It will hum softly in the darkness, holding the memory of every wave and every breath. Its creatures will drift in quiet rhythm, their slow hearts sinking with the turning of the earth. And somewhere far below, where no light has ever reached, the deep will remain unchanged, vast, patient, eternal, waiting for nothing, needing nothing, simply existing in its perfect stillness. So as you rest tonight, imagine yourself sinking gently into that calm. Let the surface world fade, replaced by the slow pulse of the sea. Feel the water around you cool, endless, safe. The noises of life above grow faint, replaced by the sound of your own breathing, the echo of distant currents. You are drifting now, part of the same rhythm that moves through tides and stars, through life and sleep. The ocean holds you as it holds everything, and its dream becomes your own. Beneath its quiet surface, the world is always awake, always resting, always dreaming, the eternal sleeper, wrapped in blue.